Chapter 977, Soaring Rage 3. However, for all the information he received, there wasn't even a mention of Ouyang Yunqi, this person, at all. But now, that Ouyang Yunqi kept saying over and over he and Su Luo were lovers that parted but still longed for each other. And he even mentioned a child. This made the always calm Nangong Luoyun feel that his entire world was starting to fall apart. I didn't. Su Luo firmly denied it. You didn't? Then, when he said those things, why didn't you say you didn't have such relationship? Now you tell me you didn't have such relationship. Nangong Luoyun simply didn't believe it. Su Luo's forehead throbbed with pain. What should she say that wouldn't make him angry? Yunqi was already a matter from her past life. She never imagined that she would still meet him again in this lifetime. The matter of crossing over, would he believe it? Furthermore, in her past life, she truly had been together with Yunqi. This she really couldn't deny. Su Luo was so tangled that her head became big. She didn't know from where to start to tell him. Nangong Luoyun's deep gaze stared at Su Luo, just like a falcon in the night, unblinkingly staring at her. Time passed 1 minute, and 1 second at a time. He was waiting for her explanation. But she seemed to express that she had nothing to say. Nangong Luoyun could be described with 4 words, represented by cruel, bloody, fierce and malevolent. But he never used this attitude to confront her. He always held her like his most precious treasure, cherishing her in every possible way. But from knowing each other till now, what Nangong Luoyun hated the most was Su Luo not answering his provocations. Regardless of how passionately he would approach her, or deliberately compel her or deliberately slander her, she would always be so aloof. No one knew, faced with her like this, how discouraged Nangong Luoyun would be. He wasn't a saint, he could also get tired, could feel exhausted. Su Luo pondered for a long time. In the end, Su Luo prepared herself mentally. She took a deep breath, about to tell Nangong Luoyun all of her past life's things, bit by bit, so he would know. Whether he believed it or not depended on him. Whether she wanted to talk about it or not depended on her. However, he didn't even wait for Su Luo to speak. Suddenly, Nangong Luoyun abruptly shook off Su Luo, turned around and left with large strides, leaving Su Luo alone in this desolate and uninhabited forest. Nangong Luoyun, watching his back disappear without a trace in the blink of an eye, Su Luo loudly shouted. But no matter how she shouted, he didn't turn his head, nor did he return. He just left like that, in big strides, firm and determined, leaving her alone in this overgrown forest. Su Luo felt extremely wronged. Didn't he say that he liked her? Didn't he say that they would never leave each other? In the end, didn't he still throw her aside and directly leave? Lies, everything was lies. On Su Luo's face, huge teardrops flowed down along her plump lower eyelids. No matter what, she could not stop it at all. The place where her heart was, come through with bursts of pain. So painful that she almost collapsed. Su Luo slowly crouched down, her hands tightly wrapped around herself, hugging very tightly. Momentarily, tears fell down like rain. The sky in the afternoon, don't know why it would unexpectedly be shrouded in dark clouds, with the black clouds covering the sky. Very quickly, a violent intense wind wantonly flew about in the forest. Immediately following that, rain poured down in torrents, slapping the ground, and smashing out shallow small holes in the mud. Su Luo stayed in place, resting her head on her knees, her hands embracing her knees, silently immersed in sorrow. Nangong would never just abandon her like this, unconcerned. He definitely would come back to find her. When he returned to find her, she would reveal everything right, tell everything to him. As Su Luo felt wronged, she also said this to herself in her heart. However, regarding the point of whether Nangong Luoyun would turn around and try to find her, her heart right now wasn't a bit of certain. Chapter 978, Soaring Rage 4. Just at this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared from behind Su Luo. This shadow slowly approached Su Luo. Su Luo, who was immersed in sadness, although her sharp senses were reduced a lot, her body's basic instinct towards danger still made her turn her head subconsciously. This glance made her expression stiffen in an instant, her back gradually growing cold. The person in front of her was enveloped completely in a black cloak, with a slim body that made the cloak seem very wide. It fluttered and floated with the elements. The entire face of the person in front of her was covered by a black hat, but from the atmosphere alone, Su Luo knew right away who it was. Su Luo took a deep breath and subconsciously took a step back. That mysterious person dressed in a black cloak extended a slim white hand and gripped the edge of the hat. With a pull, that black hat was ripped off, exposing a face that was radiating light in all directions. Fairy Yanxia. Su Luo's eyes immediately shrunk. Fairy Yanxia looked at Su Luo, her eyes dipped in malicious light. The scorching hot gaze almost burned Su Luo. Su Luo subconsciously took another step back, because she clearly saw the hatred and rage in old witch Yanxia's eyes. Before, in order for her to escape, she had used the small stone to blow up the old witch's chest area, badly mutilating it. Now the old witch had found her. How could there be good things waiting for her? A sinister and cold smile hung at the corner of the old witch Yanxia's mouth. She walked slowly towards Su Luo, step by step. Su Luo subconsciously retreated step by step. All around, a gale erupted. Huge jade beads, like rain, tumbled down and hit her face, stinging her somewhat. The corner of old witch Yanxia's mouth gloomily pulled up. Loathsome girl, today and the next year is the anniversary of your death. Accept death. Su Luo's heart was deeply worried, but her expression was as calm as before. Old witch, why didn't the little stone's explosion just kill you last time? Su Luo breathed in through her nose and, with a ghost of a smile, cast a sidelong glance at the other side. This was the biggest grievance in the old witch Yanxia's heart. Hearing this sentence, she bared her fangs and brandished her claws, she wanting to rush over to tear Su Luo into pieces. Su Luo waved her hand. Wait. For the sake of giving face to your master, say it. What last words do you still have to pass on? The muscle at the corner of the old witch Yanxia's mouth trembled slightly. It could clearly be seen how furious she really was. Su Luo faintly smiled. My master? Old witch, I have already sent out a letter to him. What letter? Old witch Yanxia had a very bad premonition. My last words are. Su Luo said it in an as if by right manner. If I die, the murderer is you, old witch. Fairy Yanxia was so angry to the point that she nearly gave off smoke. She never expected that this loathsome girl would be so cunning, to actually leave behind a letter beforehand. However, Fairy Yanxia also wasn't stupid. She wouldn't just be scared by this and dare not make a move. She coldly smiled. So what? Your master originally didn't like me. Since I can't make him love me, then let him just hate me. Su Luo's expression stiffened slightly. This old witch's brain circuit was different from a normal person's, really wasn't easy to persuade her. What must she do today, so she could escape unscathed? Now she was deliberately stalling for time, but would Nangong Luyan really return to look for her? No, the old witch was a strong expert from the older generation. Nangong should not be able to deal with her, rather than letting him lose his life in vain. Fairy Yanxia walked towards Su Luo step by step, a sinister smirk hanging at the corner of her mouth. Su Luo, step by step, moved back. In the end, she was backed into a corner, her back pressing against the tree trunk of a millennium-old ancient tree. Fairy Yanxia suddenly laughed coldly. What, deliberately stalling for time? Waiting for your young lover to come to save you? The fists at Su Luo's side tightened slightly. The old witch really was worthy of being the old witch. So originally, she had known everything. Chapter 979. Moment of Life and Death. 1. Su Luo took a step back. A trace of deep worry flashed through her eyes. Fairy Yanxia coldly smiled. Since you don't have any last words, then accept death. Done talking, with both hands in front of her chest, a blazing ray of light burst forth, finally condensing into an intense, transparent ball of light in her hands. The ball of light was bright and scorching hot, with an imposing manner that would make people's heart tremble in fear. Old witch, even if you kill me, what's so amazing about it? You will never be able to compare with my mother. You can't even compare with a toenail of hers. A thick, deep and cold intent was in Su Luo's eyes. Fairy Yanxia was furious. Loathsome girl, court death. Under her rage, The transparent ball of light she condensed out started to leak spirit power. Old Witch Yanxia's expression turned increasingly ugly. This loathsome girl, even with death near at hand, she still schemed against her. She deliberately enraged her, really damned. The ball of light in Fairy Yanxia's hands was like a scorching sun pressing heavily downwards, carrying an incomparable force. Su Luo's eyes narrowed slightly in her heart. She was uncertain and deeply worried. Today, she was afraid she wouldn't be able to dodge it. Her survival instinct caused Su Luo to cover herself with nothingness of space. Immediately, she turned around and ran forward. Run, run, run. The wind was blowing beside her ears with whooshing sounds, and the tall ancient trees on both sides seemed to retreat backwards. Su Luo's speed soared to the highest ever since the beginning of history. However, Yanxia, that old witch, was one of the strong experts from the previous generation. How could Su Luo escape once again? Bang! A violent noise resounded. Su Luo only felt a huge weight like a large mountain suddenly attack towards her back. Like a broken army, unable to resist. This power, it was so huge that it could even crush hills and creeks into a river. In this split second, Su Luo suddenly recalled when Western Jin's old emperor spoke of the matter of how the master of Purgatory City turned the tall and imposing snowy plateau into the heavenly lake. As if in a slow-motion movie, Su Luo's body shot forward from being knocked against. Bang, bang, bang. Su Luo's body smashed apart a countless number of ancient trees and bushes. Su Luo was knocked away no less than a kilometer's distance by this incomparable power, before finally, with a bang, she fell to the ground. So painful. Su Luo felt that, from combining her last lifetime plus this lifetime's experience, today's experience was the most desperate one for her ever. Su Luo was dizzy with blurred vision from being hit, and her 4 limbs were numb. She continuously vomited out blood from her mouth. Old Witch Yanxia was worthy of being called one of the strongest from the previous generation. She was strong to this degree. Su Luo took a deep breath and wanted to stand up. However, this breath affected her lungs and led to her coughing violently. Cough, cough, cough. Su Luo once again spit out 3 mouthfuls of blood. And only then did her brain become a bit clear-headed. Su Luo supported herself with the ancient tree that she had knocked against until only half of it remained. She slowly stood up. She wiped the blood stain at the corner of her mouth, her figure unable to stop swaying. Just at this moment, the old witch Yanxia had already rushed over. Fairy Yanxia's gaze had a mocking expression. Seeing the battered and exhausted appearance of Su Luo, the corner of her mouth repeatedly sneered. Scoff, I thought you this girl would have more ability. You weren't even able to bear 1/5 of this fairy's strength? Su Luo supported herself by leaning on the tree. Breathing very heavily, she weakly sneered. You can only compare yourself to me from the younger generation. If you have the ability, go find my mother to compare with. Fairy Yanxia was infuriated until she seethed with anger. Unable to restrain her rage. Yanhua, that slut, was a thorn that was buried the deepest in her heart. Now this little slut before her eyes continuously reminded her, and continuously pushed this thorn even deeper. Loathsome girl, since you want to die that badly, then this old lady will help you succeed. Fairy Yanxia's appearance was sinister, her gaze very fierce. A black palm imprint suddenly appeared in the middle of her palm. Chapter 980, Moment of Life and Death, 2. The palm imprint suddenly elongated, becoming big, and very quickly, it became as large as a mountain. Yanxia, the old witch, waved her hand. The entire mountain-like force suddenly smashed towards Su Luo. Momentarily, a gale erupted. SSSS sounds of friction burst out from midair. Watching the mountain smash towards herself, Su Luo's pupils shrunk. But very quickly from the depth of Su Luo's eyes flashed lights from feeling relieved. What a coincidence, once again, she experienced what it was like facing death. Nangong Luyan, you blame me, then continue to go on blaming me forever. You must never look back to find me. The smile at the corner of Su Luo's mouth became increasingly brilliant. Just at this moment, the mountain ruthlessly smashed down. Bang! The entire Swallow Cloud mountain range violently shook. Su Luo was smashed and sent flying far, far away. The instant she was smashed out, Su Luo had already lost perception from too much pain. When she once again fell heavily to the ground, she had already completely lost all senses of pain. Just at the moment, Su Luo was being smashed by the mountain because nothingness of space was already cracked open by Yen Xia, that old witch's first attack. Within a short time naturally she couldn't use it. Just when Su Luo was waiting for death, a white ray of light suddenly shot out from Su Luo's body. The little divine dragon was like an arrow of light, rapidly shooting towards the old witch Yen Xia, leaving behind, in midair, an afterimage that could dazzle a person's eyes. Because all of Fairy Yen Xia's attention was focused on Su Luo, therefore she didn't notice the approach of the white shadow. When she finally took notice, the little divine dragon had already leapt out in front of her. The little divine dragon was like a thorn shooting towards Fairy Yen Xia. Just when Fairy Yen Xia was about to swat this little bastard to death, she saw the little divine dragon's flexible body making many changes. In a flash he bite towards Fairy Yen Xia fairy right thumb. Fairy Yen Xia's knew how to avoid hundreds of secret attacks, but she actually fell for the little divine dragon's trick. The little divine dragon ruthlessly bit towards that finger. One could only hear a snapping sound, and the old witch Yen Xia's right thumb was actually bitten off at the base by the little divine dragon. Fairy Yen Xia was so angry, smoke was coming out of her nostrils. That thumb had a dark green ring on it. That was... Quickly spit it out. Yen Xia, the old witch, was extremely angry. With one grab she clutched the little divine dragon's neck. The difference in strength between her and the little divine dragon was, after all, very big. In one moment of carelessness he was stopped and lifted by the neck the old witch Yen Xia. His two back legs directly hung in mid-air. Yen Xia fairy's strength was too strong, pinching the little divine dragon until his tongue stuck straight out. Both of his eyes turned white. Spit it out. Believe it or not that this old woman will choke you to death. Fairy Yen Xia's face twisted. Her eyes opened wide until they nearly fell out. The little divine dragon's originally large, clear and monochrome eyes now were bloodshot. His sharp claws ruthlessly slashed towards the old witch Yen Xia's wrist. Immediately, her wrist was drenched with blood. Fairy Yen Xia was so angry that her complexion became ashen. In the next instant she subconsciously smashed the little divine dragon heavily against a rock. The dragon race was petty and liked to shield their shortcomings. It's not like Fairy Yen Xia didn't know. Therefore she didn't treat the little divine dragon like she treated Su Luo, by yelling that she wanted to beat and kill him. The little divine dragon was knocked around by Fairy Yen Xia's full force. Immediately, his head turned askew and he fainted. Fairy Yen Xia glared at the little divine dragon with hatred. If she could, she naturally will cut open the little divine dragon's stomach and take out that dark green thumb ring. But she was afraid of the dragon race's power. So Fairy Yen Xia didn't dare to kill the little divine dragon. Even though they were in a desolate and uninhabited forest, she still didn't dare. Fairy Yen Xia could only pick up the little divine dragon and extend her finger in his mouth to fish around. While she endured the nausea, she was also busy trying hard to find it. However, she dug around for a long time, but could not fish out anything. Chapter 981, Moment of Life and Death 3. What's going on? Because of the green jade thumb ring's material, it's impossible for it to be so easily digested. Fairy Yen Xia inevitably was somewhat anxious. She alertly looked around, and suddenly, a dagger appeared in her hand. However, before she could thrust the dagger towards the little divine dragon, a person's figure shot towards her. Nangong Luyan had left in anger. In fact, he had only walked 2 steps away before he regretted it. But his only remaining pride compelled him to move forward, step by step. In his heart, he hoped Su Luo would rush up from behind to hug him and tell him the truth to everything. So long as it was something she said, he would believe it. However, she didn't. She didn't do anything. From disappointment to despair, Nangong Luyan ultimately left with large strides. As he left, Nangong Luoyun's speed was very fast. He ran to another mountaintop about 100 kilometers away, and Nangong Luyan ferociously gave vent to the rage in his heart. This mountaintop, within a range of 5 kilometers, was originally a dense overgrown forest. Now, however, all the ancient trees were pulled up by their roots. Within a range of 5 kilometers, entire families of magical beasts fled. The ones that ran slower all fell under Nangong Liuyun's ruthless hands. Once the legendary godlike king became furious, not a blade of grass would grow. On Nangong Liuyun's body, there already was a faint imposing manner of a godlike king. After he finished venting his feelings, Nangong Liuyun reclined against a broken ancient tree's trunk. His eyes blankly and helplessly gazed up at the sky. Sadness. This was a mood Nangong Liuyun never had before, but now, this mood had directly appeared on his face. Thinking of Su Luo, Nangong Liuyun's chest area ached dully. Adoration, pampering, disappointment, despair. Finally, the corner of Nangong Liuyun's mouth hooked into a self-mocking sneer. In merely 2 short years' time, she was unable to guard against loneliness and became inseparable lovers with another man. And even had this kind of woman. How was she even worth a bit of his love? However, matters had already come to this point, but he still constantly had her on his mind, impossible to get rid of. So much so that, regardless of everything, he would even offer his pride for her to trample on. He was really cheap. Nangong Liuyun was so angry that he ruthlessly smashed his fist towards the ground. Immediately, with his fist as the center, the ground cracked outwards in the shape of a spider web. Each and every one of the lines became a deep trench. After he smashed this fist down, it just so happened to be at the same time as when Fairy Yanxia's first fist smashed towards Su Luo, giving off an identical sound. It was to the extent that Nangong Liuyun simply didn't discover a difference at all. Up until an even fiercer second force had burst out. Only then did Nangong Liuyun abruptly sit up, his gaze shooting towards the direction where it came from. Such a powerful strength. This strength came from that mountaintop. Nangong Liuyun suddenly recalled the matter Xian had mentioned on the back of the paper crane. They were in the midst of being chased to be killed by Fairy Yanxia. In a split second, Nangong Liuyun's complexion abruptly changed. His figure flew up and in a flash, shot towards the area where the sound came from. Luo Luo. Nangong Liuyun clenched his fists tightly. In the depths of his eyes were anxiety and apprehensiveness. Just when Nangong Liuyun arrived, Yanxia, that old witch, had just retrieved that dark green thumb ring from the little divine dragon's body. It turned out that the little divine dragon had hidden a trick earlier. When he bit the old witch Yanxia's finger, that green jade thumb ring had already fallen into the pocket on his clothes. This was clothes Su Luo had personally sewn for him in accordance with his build. The little divine dragon, who had a habit of being protective towards his food, especially liked the big pocket at the center of the stomach area. Fairy Yanxia fished around in the little divine dragon's mouth for a very long time, but couldn't dig out her stuff. But she inadvertently glanced in the direction of that large, slightly protruding pocket on the little divine dragon. As a result, Fairy Yanxia got hold of her extremely precious green thumb ring in the end, achieving her wish. Chapter 982, Moment of Life and Death 4. She hatefully tossed aside the little divine dragon. Then Fairy Yanxia's gaze turned to Su Luo. Before, Su Luo was heavily smashed twice by Fairy Yanxia's fists. The first time was tolerable, with nothingness of space blocking a little, and some of its strength was lost in midair. As a result, even though she sustained some heavy injuries, it still wasn't life-threatening. However, the old witch Yanxia's second time, it had contained endless amount of power. Moreover, it was from such a close distance. Su Luo couldn't escape, nor could she dodge it. So she was hit head-on by that strong shockwave. Now Su Luo lied on the ground with blood flowing out of her mouth continuously. Her body was motionless, as if she already had stopped breathing. Fairy Yanxia walked a few steps to stand in front of Su Luo, towering over her, looking down at with indifference and ridicule. It continued to rain as before. The torrential rain spilled to the ground drop by drop. Su Luo's face was already very pale. Being fiercely scrubbed by the torrential rain, it became so pale as to be nearly transparent without a trace of color. The corner of Fairy Yanxia's mouth hooked into a cold, detached smile. Yanhua, you slut! Open your eyes wide and watch. Your treasured daughter is about to die. At this moment, Fairy Yanxia's mind seemed to be immersed in past memories. Although she was smiling, her face had twisted malevolently to be terrifying. It would intimidate a person at a glance. She slowly crouched down, pulled out a dagger, and gestured over Su Luo's extremely beautiful face. Before I kill you naturally, I will first ruin this face of yours. What Fairy Yanxia hated the most in this lifetime were people who were more beautiful than her. What she hated the most was Yanhua's beautiful face. Now Su Luo had inherited both qualities. How could she not provoke Fairy Yanxia's resentment? The dagger in old witch Yanxia's hand glittered like frost and snow. Bit by bit, it approached Su Luo's delicate and matchless complexion. This face was simply otherworldly beautiful. It had an enchanting allure that with one glance, a person would be deeply absorbed by its beauty. Sinister rays of light flickered in the old witch Yanxia's eyes. Her dagger shook as it slashed heavily towards Su Luo's delicate face. According to the old witch Yanxia's strength, with merely one brush, Su Luo's face would be ruined. At this moment, Su Luo silently lied on the ground with gossamer of a breath, as if at any time, she could take her last breath and die. Su Luo didn't have the slightest strength to resist. Her little stone, because it had saved her the last time by burning the old witch Yanxia, it was still fast asleep in her space. The little divine dragon was knocked unconscious by the old witch Yanxia, his life and death uncertain, just as the old witch Yanxia's lowered her blade. Stop. A world-shaking voice rolled over from the distant sky. A black-as-ink figure jumped down from the clouds in the sky. Nangong Liuyun's figure appeared in midair. The wind from his palm strike stopped the old witch Yanxia. His rainbow-like atmosphere was imposing. His strength that weighed 15,000 kilograms, heavily smashed towards the opponent. However, Nangong Liuyun was still too far away. And old witch Yanxia's dagger was only a finger's width away from Su Luo. Seeing that someone had came to save Su Luo, the old witch Yanxia immediately changed her plans. In the instant electricity could give off sparks, old witch Yanxia's expression surveyed everything with craftiness, changing from brightness to darkness. Suddenly, the corner of her mouth hooked into a sinister sneer. Someone came to save this loathsome girl? Good, very good. Then she would kill her, to prevent future troubles, then destroy that face of hers. Nangong Liuyun's palm strike arrived in the blink of an eye. The old witch Yanxia felt the other side's strength wasn't weak, but it also wasn't strong enough to make her raise an eyebrow. She used 80% of her strength to stop the unexpected attack. The remaining 20% of her strength, she used it on her dagger. The corner of her mouth raised in a malevolent sneer, and the deeply cold dagger stabbed towards unconscious Su Luo's throat. Nangong Liuyun, seeing this scene, nearly fell down from midair. Chapter 983, Moment of Life or Death 5. He who had always been calm, at this time was so panicked that his breathing nearly stopped. He stared with round glaring eyes, his eyes momentarily bloodshot, as he bellowed fiercely, "Stop!" His Luo that he finally found after searching the entire world. Nangong Liuyun only felt that both his legs had no strength, and everything went black in front of his eyes. Right when the dagger was 0.03 centimeters from Su Luo's throat, suddenly a green vine extended out from Su Luo's body. A rustling noise sounded softly. The thick and solid green vine bound the dagger very firmly, layer after layer. Since the beginning, the variant acacia tree had stayed concealed, preserving its remaining strength. Only at this crucial moment did it come out. It knew it was far too weak to be a match for the old witch Yanxia, so it didn't decide to pull the dagger away. Instead, it took the risk of being seriously injured, and bundled the opposing party's dagger to a stop. It couldn't be helped but to say that precisely because of this delay, it snatched back a little bit of time, and was ultimately able to save Su Luo's life. Yanxia, the old witch, had never expected that at the crucial moment, a variant acacia tree would unexpectedly emerge to disturb the situation. Variant acacia tree. Fairy Yanxia snarled fiercely. How precious of a plant pet was the variant acacia tree to a wood element mage. But it had recognized Su Luo, this slut, as its master. At this moment, Fairy Yanxia almost wanted to place her hands on her hips and curse out the traitorous god. Couldn't Su Luo, this slut, not have so much good luck? First, she had Mystery Stone that had a formidable fire element. She also had the King of Dragon race's direct descendant, the Little Divine Dragon. Lastly, she still actually had this variant acacia tree. The variant acacia tree before her eyes was clearly only at the first transformation. Once it entered the second transformation, then the third transformation. Just thinking about it, Fairy Yanxia would feel envious. However, it was precisely because the appearance of these treasures that made Fairy Yanxia's desire to kill Su Luo grew even more resolute. Right now, at such a young age, she was already this outstanding. Her future accomplishments were simply limitless. Who knew to what degree Su Luo's strength would reach in the future? At this time, Fairy Yanxia had a deep restrained fear towards Su Luo. In order to forever cut off future troubles, Fairy Yanxia suddenly shook. The thick and solid green vines broke into pieces in a flash and fell down to the ground. Fairy Yanxia shot an indifferent glance at the variant acacia tree, raised her dagger and pressed it towards Su Luo once again. At this time, Nangong Luyan had already dissolved Fairy Yanxia's killing move. His figure had already arrived before Su Luo's figure. Stop. Nangong Luyan pulled out a spirit pinball from his chest pocket. His gaze was ruthless with an exceptionally dangerous aura. Fairy Yanxia lifted up her eyes from its corners. She saw that scarlet-red spirit pinball Nangong Luyan held in his palm. Her figure suddenly stiffened in a split second. That spirit pinball was a fire-like red, like the afterglow of the setting sun, incomparably dazzling. After the 10 ranks, there was the saint level. And a saint-level spirit pinball was precisely this color. Fairy Yanxia watched Nangong Luyan distractedly, and put away the dagger in her hand. The saint-level spirit pinball was a huge threat to her. She had no choice but to treat it cautiously. Let her go. Nangong Luyan's voice was ruthlessly cold, like ice that had accumulated for a millennium. Cold air seeped through every one of his words. That healthy figure with a sharp and clearly handsome face, at this moment, was enveloped in cold frost, containing a murderous aura. Those seemingly serene eyes concealed a slyness and a perceptiveness that was as sharp as a falcon's eyes. It also seemed to contain endless layers of ice that would make people tremble with fear. Nangong Luyan, who had never revealed his temper, was truly furious this time. Under this pair of falcon-like, cruel, untamable sharp gaze, Fairy Yanxia's heart couldn't help but to shiver. With regards to strength, as an expert from the older generation, she was naturally the stronger one. However, for some unknown reason, when she came into contact with Nangong Luyan's deathly still gaze, unexpectedly she would trembled slightly from fear. Chapter 984. Moment of Life or Death 6. Fairy Yanxia knew, in a confrontation between experts, the person whose heart contained fear had already lost. Her gloomy and cold gaze watched Nangong Luyan attentively. With clear enunciation, she said somewhat mockingly, "What? You've come to rescue your little sweetheart?" In the quarrel between Su Luo and Nangong Luyan from before, Fairy Yanxia had observed it all. Nangong Luyan's eyes narrowed dangerously, glared at her with an ice-cold expression. He said, "Let her go." Nangong Luyan saw Su Luo's complexion was pale with a gossamer of breath left, and his heart ached unbearably. However, his appearance was still as grave and stern as before and didn't express anything else. Fairy Yanxia let out a cold and gloomy laugh. With one lift, she had Su Luo in her hands. Su Luo's back leaned against Fairy Yanxia's chest. Su Luo's head hung down softly. Moreover, Fairy Yanxia's dagger was only half a thumb's width distance away from Su Luo's throat. I said let her go. Nangong Luyan's eyes were like a deep cold pool, powerful without any anger. Fairy Yanxia laughed coldly. "Give me the spirit pinball. Otherwise, I will immediately kill her." There was a ruthless and crazy expression in Nangong Luyan's eyes. He spoke, stressing each word. "Old witch, your life is very valuable. Are you willing to die with us?" The smile at the corner of Fairy Yanxia's mouth froze slightly. Nangong Luyan's words were very extreme. If Fairy Yanxia didn't let Su Luo go, then everyone would die together. That saint-rank spirit pinball would definitely bury all three of them. Fairy Yanxia's heart wavered, but it wasn't prominent on her expression. She just coldly laughed repeatedly. Don't you love her a lot? Are you willing to let her die? Nangong Liuyun's gaze was cold like ice. He looked at the sliant and uncommunicative Su Luo, then looked at the joyfully satisfied Fairy Yanxia. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth pulled into a smile. His smile was like a wind that brushed past, but it didn't reach his eyes. Luo Luo is about to die soon. Nangong Luyun with waning interest shook his head. I certainly will die with her. After a while his voice slowly sounded. Since it's like this, then why don't I first just dispose of all the foes together? Finished speaking, he slowly gathered his spirit strength and injected it into the spirit pinball. The spirit pinball was suddenly like ashes that could burn once more. It seemed to have a little bit of life restored to it. Fairy Yanxia's complexion immediately became stiff. If the spirit pinball's spirit power was to awaken, then what awaited the three people was only death. Stop! Fairy Yanxia had never thought that Nangong Luyun would be this crazy and this unrestrained. People that was harsh towards others was not scary. To be harsh to themselves was the real ruthless people. After she yelled out this line, Fairy Yanxia knew that she was already at a disadvantageous position in this negotiation. She just snorted coldly. The strength of the saint-ranked spirit pinball is tyrannical. Once it explodes, not to mention the three of us, even this swallow cloud mountain will be razed to the ground. Nangong Liuyun's complexion was peaceful with a malicious gaze. He glared at Fairy Yanxia without saying a word. Fairy Yanxia humphed angrily. I can hand Su Luo, this slut, over to you, but you must not use your spirit pinball. How's that? These words exactly reflected Nangong Liuyun's intentions. He advanced gradually, even if he exhausted all his tricks. It was all in exchange for Su Luo's safety. Now that the old witch Yanxia was willing to exchange Su Luo with him, what else was there for him to be dissatisfied with? Nangong Luyun nodded slightly. His voice was cold and without a trace of undulation. Barely enough. Humph. In this lifetime, Fairy Yanxia still hadn't suffered this great of a loss. She snorted heavily and directly tossed Su Luo over. Su Luo, this little slut person, was now in his hands. See if he still dared to take out the spirit pinball to threaten her. Su Luo's body was like a rag doll, tossed up really high. Nangong Luyun leapt up and pulled Su Luo steadily into his embrace. However, before he could heave a sigh of relief, his breathing was obstructed once more. Chapter 985. Moment of Life or Death 7. At this time, Su Luo's breathing was on the brink of ceasing. Her 5 viscera and 6 bowels had practically shifted. Her entire body had countless number of external injuries and severe internal injuries. Seeing such a weak Su Luo, Nangong Luyun could feel his eye sockets go sour. If he hadn't stormed off in a fit of anger, how would his darling Luo Luo have become? At this time, Nangong Luyun was so regretful that he almost punched himself to death. Just when Nangong Luyun was feeling remorseful and ashamed, Fairy Yanxia laughed gloomily and coldly, as she thrust a long double-edged sword towards Su Luo's body. Nangong Luyun was carrying Su Luo, so if the sword pierced through Su Luo, it would certainly also injure Nangong Luyun. This was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Fairy Yanxia had come up with a good plan. From the start to the finish, Nangong Luyun had never lowered his guard against Fairy Yanxia. While carrying Su Luo, he whirled his body around and avoided the old witch Yanxia's attack. Nangong Luyun took out a life replenishment pill, squeezed it into Su Luo's mouth, and forced her to swallow it. Then he placed her underneath a large tree. Afterwards, he straightened his back and slowly turned his body around. Without saying a word, he immediately executed a killing move. Nangong Liuyun's long double-edged sword danced in the wind, interweaving many exquisite moves. Fairy Yanxia also had an extremely cold long double-edged sword. A long double-edged sword that was like a clear spring, shining brightly. Nangong Liuyun's expression was like that of an avenging king. His ink-black long hair danced wildly behind him. His eyes were deeply crazy as he swung that long double-edged sword incessantly. The tip of the double-edged sword sparkled, leaving behind many afterimages. One was an exceptionally strong expert from the older generation. The other had the potential to be promoted as the new generation's king of strong experts. The 2 people flew higher and higher. This area of heaven and earth was ruptured again, and again by the two people's sword energy. Boulders rolled and fell down. Nangong Luoyun continuously hacked out 21 killing sword moves, full of unstoppable power. Fairy Yanxia's face contained a sneer. Then suddenly, the double-edged sword in her hand heavily slashed towards Nangong Luoyun. This move contained the strength of heaven and earth, like claps of thunder that weighed 150 kilograms. Bang bang bang. SSSS, SSSS, SSSS. Sword interweaved with sword. An electrical spark suddenly appeared. The swords of the two experts finally clashed, determining who was superior. Nangong Luoyun's sword was being pressed to the bottom. The blade was being fractured, centimeter by centimeter. Finally it turned into fine powder. The sneer in Fairy Yanxia's eyes became increasingly stronger. She used more power in her palm, and it accumulated strong and ferocious spirit power. Then she suddenly sent the palm strike towards Nangong Luoyun's chest. Nangong Luoyun had already been prepared for this. Subsequently, his large palm strike also arrived. Bang bang bang. The two people exchanged endless number of palm strikes in midair. There were no less than 6,636 palm strikes. The final palm strike, Fairy Yanxia's eyes darkened as she exerted all of her strength. Bang! A heavy hit. Heaven and earth changed color because of this. The mountains trembled, and an endless stream of boulders tumbled down the overhanging cliff. After sending out this palm strike, Fairy Yanxia stood motionless where she was, and the corner of her mouth had a sneer. This heavy punch hit Nangong Luoyun, and he retreated back a few steps, before his figure was finally able to stabilize. Puffed, Nangong Luoyun's figure swayed slightly and a mouthful of blood sprayed out from his mouth. Seeing Nangong Luoyun's body suffer such a serious injury, the expression in Fairy Yanxia's irises became increasingly more excited. Nangong Luoyun's innate skill was outstanding. This sort of genius talent, it was fine if he hadn't met her, but he just had to be her enemy. How could she let him grow to maturity, then threaten her position? At this time, the murderous intent in Fairy Yanxia's eyes were hardly concealed. Nangong Luoyun, the strongest among the younger generation. TSK, now, it seems you turned out to be merely this strong. She sneered and snorted. Old witch, could it be that you are certain you will win? Nangong Luoyun's gaze was indifferent while the corners of his mouth hooked into a demonically charming grin. His vermilion lips were moistened with a bloody red color, making him even more prominently enchanting and mysterious. Fairy Yanxia's eyes carried somewhat of a sneer. TSK, you're merely a 9th rank, yet you dare to be this arrogant? 9th rank? Very quickly, I won't be that anymore. Nangong Luoyun wiped away the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth, and a sly radiance glinted in his eyes. Chapter 986, Advancing to 10th Rank 1. Fairy Yanxia laughed coldly. What? You can advance a rank in such a short time? Why can't I? Nangong Luoyun's gaze was ice-cold and taunting. The mocking expression on Fairy Yanxia's face became increasingly obvious. Even if you can advance a rank, you may not be able to defeat me. As she stopped speaking, a green vine suddenly emerged from Fairy Yanxia's sleeve, and suddenly whipped towards Nangong Luoyun's neck. Nangong Luoyun's long sword had already been smashed into pieces, and he had no other weapon in his hand. A golden light burst out from Nangong Luoyun's wrist, and a golden blaze spread all over the green vine. Tisk, just this insignificant strength and you still dare be so arrogant. Young one, go die. A crimson fireball suddenly appeared in Fairy Yanxia's hand. The fireball smashed towards Nangong Luoyun's body like a high-speed meteor. The fireball was extremely huge, surging on like a smoke signal, an unstoppable power crushing towards Nangong Luoyun. Nangong Luoyun's complexion changed. He was nervous because he had seen from the corner of his eye. A group of black-clothed people had just went to surrounded Su Luo's current location. His Luo. Nangong Luoyun's eyes narrowed dangerously. An unprecedented cold light flashed across his eyes which were as pitch black as ink. Old witch. Since you want to die, then this king will help you accomplish it. Nangong Luoyun naturally had a hidden trump card. He had been in seclusion for 2 years. If he merely advanced by 1 rank, then it would truly have wronged him. In fact, Nangong Luoyuan had already touched the threshold of the 10th rank. Just when he wanted to release his spirit strength to make a breakthrough, Xian's letter had arrived. As a result, without demur he immediately rushed over. Breaking through to advance a rank or whatever had all been thrown to the back of his mind. There was one dividing line between the 9th rank and the 10th rank. As to strength, one was like heaven and the other like earth. Not to mention, Nangong Luoyuan's body was truly not like an ordinary person's. So, when he advanced, the lightning trial would be extremely terrifying. One moment of carelessness, and even his life would be extinguished. Before Nangong Luoyuan carried Su Luo, he had already placed the lightning protection bead on Su Luo's chest. Therefore, the effect of the lightning trial would drop to the lowest for Su Luo. Fairy Yen Xia watched Nangong Luoyuan avoid her attack, and afterwards, he actually sat down and crossed his legs. She couldn't help but be secretly puzzled. Could it be that this youngster said he would advance a rank, and he's really going to advance? Nangong Luoyuan's actions made Fairy Yen Xia's heart grow cautious, and she did not immediately move to kill him. Just when Fairy Yen Xia was distracted, in a flash, black clouds densely covered the sky. The thick dark clouds shrouded above their heads. The sky suddenly darkened to almost pitch black in color. Fairy Yen Xia's expression immediately became rigid. Suddenly, an ominous premonition appeared in her heart. Rumble, the sky was painted black. A lightning, with 10,000 rays of light, streaked across the sky with rich color. Afterwards, the speckles of star-like rays from the lightning trial dropped down from the sky. One could only hear the crashing sounds, and the rumbling sounds resounded continuously. For a moment, the sky was like a sea of lightning flowing down with tremendous thunder rolling by. In a flash, Fairy Yen Xia's complexion changed greatly. Nangong Luoyuan was merely passing through to the 10th rank. Why did he draw in such an intense sea of lightning? How could this be possible? Could it be that he himself was of the lightning element? Fairy Yen Xia had no time to deal with Nangong Luoyuan, who sat cross-legged in meditation on the ground. At this time, the thunder and lightning in the sky surged on. Radiating with purple light, the entire heaven and earth was dazzling like fireworks. It was extremely beautiful, but had brought endless dangers with it. This was not merely just one or two strikes of lightning, but an entire sea of lightning flowing down from the sky. This kind of formidable power was rarely seen in 100 years. Even though Fairy Yen Xia was an exceptionally strong expert, and she could keep off one or two strikes of lightning. However, when that endless lightning struck her body, how could she stop it? Chapter 987. Advancing to 10th rank 2, the lightning trial rumbled as it struck down. Those black-clothed people that were originally headed for Su Luo, how could they still dare to take even half a step forward? The crackling and rattling of the thunderous lightning resounded endlessly. Suddenly, a lightning strike hit a black-clothed person. Immediately, that black-clothed person, along with his black clothes, was completely scorched, turning into greenish-black smoke which then drifted away. The group of black-clothed people, there were at least several dozen of them. These were all Fairy Yen Xia's most highly regarded subordinates. None of their strength was weak. However, under these lightning strikes that attacked without discrimination, every one of them was struck and scorched black, then turned into greenish-black smoke. The screams of the black-clothed people when they were at death's door mixed with the incessantly rumbling of the thunderous lightning between heaven and earth was similar to purgatory, with the crying of wolves and bawling of ghosts, intensely mournful. Nangong Luoyuan was outwardly kind but inwardly evil. Long beforehand, he had already planned everything out. He had already placed the lightning protection bead on Su Luo's body. The lightning protection bead, a treasure that lightning element mages yearned for even in their dreams. In the entire continent, only the Lord of Purgatory City had it. The lightning protection bead that Nangong Luoyuan possessed was exactly the treasure the Lord of Purgatory City had. He was Nangong Luoyuan's teacher. This was the breakthrough tool he had used when he was promoted to the 10th rank. So he gave the lightning protection bead to Nangong Luoyuan, hoping it could protect his life during his promotion. However, he never imagined that Nangong Luoyuan would give the lightning protection bead to his most beloved woman. Thunder and lightning were rolling all around. 10,000 purple rays of light illuminated the heaven and earth until it was as bright as daytime. Fairy Yanxia continuously used her spirit powers and martial arts, attempting to hold back the attacking lightning strikes. There was a unique feature for the 10th rank's robbery trial. The higher the level of the subject, the stronger the lightning will be. If Nangong Luyan was an ordinary person, the lightning trial wouldn't be this strong. If Nangong Luyan didn't cultivate in the lightning element, the lightning wouldn't be this strong either. If Nangong Luyan hadn't been endowed with unusual innate skills, rarely seen in ancient and modern times, the thunderous lightning trial wouldn't be this strong either. However, these 3 points, Nangong Luyan had them all. So, today's lightning trial simply had the most lightning in history. The sea of thunder rolled on, resounding continuously. Under the rolling sea of thunderous lightning, nothing existed between the heavens and earth anymore. At this time, Fairy Yanxia cut an unprecedentedly sorry figure. Her hair that was originally meticulous was now either severed by lightning or was sticking straight up by the electricity of the thunderous lightning. That black cloak was so tattered that it barely covered her body. The most frightening thing was that it was still raining. The rain could conduct electricity, so Fairy Yanxia's body crackled and rattled incessantly, with sparks flying in all directions, like fireworks that had been set off. If Fairy Yanxia's body was in its best condition, she might still have a chance to escape. However, previously, she had been injured by the little stone, and the injuries on her body hadn't healed yet. This time, she also encountered an unprecedented lightning trial, and during the trial, there was also heavy torrential rain. All of this was like a demonic hand dragging Fairy Yanxia into the abyss of hell. The thunderstorm was endless. Don't know how many thousand-year-old ancient trees were destroyed. Don't know how many magical beasts were struck and scorched. The lightning element divided heaven and earth. Nangong Luyan had both his legs crossed as he sat, and continuously absorbed the lightning elements. As for the lightning trial that was originally supposed to strike his body, he naturally had Fairy Yanxia to obstruct it. Even though it was like this, Nangong Luyan wasn't entirely without injury. If he had the lightning protection bead, Nangong Luyan would naturally be able to avoid the lightning safely, and without any injury. However, at present, he could only stiffly bear the violent pain that came when the scorching lightning struck his body. Puff! A thunderous lightning struck Nangong Luyan's back. Nangong Luyan only felt that there was something sweet in his throat, and a mouthful of blood sprayed out. Yet another lightning bolt had smashed down heavily. Chapter 988. Advancing to 10th rank 3. This lightning trial, half of it went to Fairy Yanxia, and the other half went to Nangong Luyan. In this sky filled with 10,000 lightning bolts, how could Fairy Yanxia still dare to use a sword? She could only use her green vines to hold it back forcibly. Lightning system was the one with the most powerful attacks among the 6 basic elements, and this verdict wasn't just given randomly. Against lightning types, many other elemental law systems were unable to exhibit their power. That half of the lightning trial exploded on Fairy Yanxia's body. Although Fairy Yanxia managed to avoid it from exploding on her body, but it heavily streaked across her face. Immediately, fresh blood rushed out like water from a spring. The other half of the lightning trial shot towards Nangong Luyan. In the same way, it smashed heavily onto Nangong Luyan's body. Puff! Nangong Luyan spit out another mouthful of blood. This time, it wasn't just one mouthful. Nangong Luyan continuously coughed and vomited out blood. Only after spitting up no less than 7 large mouthfuls did his body finally stabilize. He raised his eyes, saw Fairy Yanxia, and the corner of his mouth hooked into a sinister smile. Truly many thanks. His perfectly water caltrip-shaped lips were dyed red with blood, making them even more prominently enchanting and ruthless. Fairy Yanxia was extremely angry. At this moment, she was itching to directly choke to death this king-like expert among the younger generation before her eyes. Such a young age, and he was about ready to advance to the 10th rank. The 10th rank, Thinking back to when she advanced to the 10th rank, and how much time and heart's blood she had spent to advance. Whereas the youths nowadays, Why did it seem as easy as eating rice and drinking water for them? Fairy Yin Xia was so jealous that she nearly vomited out blood. She almost vomited out blood from fear of the consequences. The lightning bolts from the trial glittered in the sky. This trial didn't know how many departed spirits were buried. Fairy Yin Xia grinded her teeth from hatred. Her eyes stared deeply at that youngster with his eyes shut and seated cross-legged on the ground. If she waited until he advanced to the 10th rank, at that time, she would only be stuck on the road to death. If she wanted to kill him, she needed to take advantage of this moment. An extremely malevolent and sinister light flashed through Fairy Yin Xia's eyes. With one shake of her hand, a green vine suddenly attacked towards the place where Nangong Liuyun's heart was. Even if the green vine arrived, it would still be fine. The crucial problem was that among the exuberant leaves of the thick and solid green vine, a cold dagger was actually hidden there. Who would have thought that the dignified and exceptionally strong expert Fairy Yin Xia would actually be this shameless as to use an assassination technique? At this moment, Nangong Luyun still had his eyes closed, his figure motionless, seemingly completely unaware of the approaching danger. However, at this moment, Nangong Luyun felt a railed energy clamoring to get out, continuously rushing out wildly. The matter was just this coincidental. Or it could also be said that the heavens were helping Nangong. Just right when the green vine carrying the dagger was a distance of 10 centimeters from Nangong Liuyun's heart, suddenly Nangong Liuyun's entire body burst out with purplish-red rays of light. This purple radiance had the inexhaustible powers and thrust of heaven and earth. Crash, with Nangong Luyun at the center, an endless force exploded outwards. The dagger that was only 10 centimeters away from Nangong Liuyun's heart, under this kind of shockwave, was actually forcefully hit back. The green vine that had carried the dagger was thrown back. Fairy Yin Xia watched the dagger approaching with a tumultuous momentum, and was immediately stunned. In the end, what exactly happened? Before she could understand, she heard a poochie sound ring out softly. Then that dagger unexpectedly thrust into her arm. The matter wasn't over. Just when the dagger was thrust into Fairy Yin Xia's arm originally, the thunder and lightning, that had already slowed down at this moment, it was as if it all had gone crazy, and began to condense once more. The originally thin strip of thunder and lightning were unexpectedly condensed into one massive ball of light. The ball of light was very large, enormous. It emitted out endless dazzling purple light, and gave off sizzling sounds. This ball of thunderous lightning's strength was formidable, simply shocking. Chapter 989. Advancing to 10th rank 4. Even if it was Fairy Yin Xia who was struck by it, her body would also be wiped out. At this time, there was no longer any other thunderous lightning in the sky. There was only this huge ball of lightning that was making sizzling sounds. It was quiet in the sky, which made a person even more fearful. Fairy Yin Xia's whole body stiffened. She swallowed some saliva and retreated backwards non-stop. However, the thing that startled and angered her was that this ball of lightning seemed to be following her as she walked. Wherever she walked to, the lightning ball would follow. Fairy Yin Xia was anxious as well as angry. She was simply about to faint. In fact, it wasn't just Fairy Yin Xia who would be like this. Whoever had such an ancestor over their head would also be afraid. Fairy Yin Xia had good eyes. Out of the corners of her eyes, she shot a glance at Su Luo on the side. At this time, Su Luo was leaning under a tree. Her complexion was pale as paper with a gossamer of breath. But at least she was still alive. No, not right. Fairy Yin Xia wasn't a fool. She immediately thought of the critical point to the problem. Under the previous rolling lightning trial, all of her subordinates were turned into smoke and flew away. However, Su Luo, who was completely lacking in strength to resist, she was completely fine. This meant that there was definitely a treasure on her body. Although Fairy Yin Xia hadn't guessed it was a lightning protection bead, but she determined that there was a lightning protection treasure on Su Luo's body. Thinking up to here, Fairy Yin Xia's figure was like electricity and shot explosively towards Su Luo. Nangong Luyun was always aware of the old witch Yin Xia's movements. Seeing her suddenly shoot explosively towards Su Luo, a hazy light flashed across Nangong Liuyun's eyes. Although his Luo Luo had the lightning protection bead, the lightning protection bead wasn't omnipotent. The lightning bead could avoid the lightning bolts, but right now, that lightning ball was very terrifying. A bit of inattentiveness, and a person could become scattered ashes and disperse smoke. How could Nangong Luoyun let his darling Luo Luo be subjected to such a risk? Because Nangong Luoyun had long since been prepared, so he was not far from Su Luo. Seeing that Fairy Yanxia was rushing towards Su Luo, Nangong Luoyun's speed rose rapidly. Suddenly, he kicked at Fairy Yanxia's abdomen. Because it was during the time when Fairy Yanxia was shooting out explosively, she couldn't retreat. Moreover, Nangong Luoyun at the 10th rank, the difference in strength compared to before was as different as night and day. As a result, Fairy Yanxia, who had been caught off guard for a moment, was unexpectedly truly kicked right in the abdomen. Moreover, her body flew a very far distance away, back the way she had come. Thump thump thump, Fairy Yanxia's body hit against a protruding boulder. The very tall mountain peak was unexpectedly leveled to the ground from bumping into her. Lastly, Fairy Yanxia fell into a pool. During a time of thunderous lightning strike, and she fell into a pool. This was a great fear. Fairy Yanxia endured the sharp pain in her abdomen and jumped up suddenly, wanting to fly ashore. However, it seemed that the gods also weren't standing on Fairy Yanxia's side. Just at this moment, that thunderous lightning in the sky finally finished condensing. That lightning ball pushed down lower and lower finally. The lightning ball, over the entire surface of the pool, directly smashed downwards. No, Fairy Yanxia's expression changed quickly. Purple light radiated out repeatedly, such that it changed the colors between heaven and earth. I don't want to die. Ah! A mournful tragic scream resonated endlessly. The thunderous lightning exploded open completely. The power that burst out of the lightning ball was so formidable, it was unsurpassed. Nangong Luoyun had already carried Su Luo in his arms to rush forward with flying speed. Run, run, run! At this moment, the lightning bolts exploded and space was in disorder. Nangong Luoyun didn't dare rip apart space. Moreover, in order to rip apart the space, a price needed to be paid, and right now he couldn't afford to pay it. Nangong Luoyun carried Su Luo, pointed his foot in the right direction, added strength and rushed forward wildly. Behind him, the force of the lightning ball's explosion extended out and continuously followed him. Under the lightning-colored rays of light, the land was scorched black, not even a blade of grass was left. The speed at which the lightning rays spread was even faster than Nangong Luoyun's rushing speed. In the final moment, Nangong Luoyun tossed Su Luo far away. Chapter 990, Near Death, 1. Of course, in the instant when he threw her out, he used his last remaining strength to wrap a protective layer around her, so that she would not be injured when she fell. Bang! Lightning spread across Nangong Luoyun's entire body. The already heavily injured Nangong Luoyun could no longer withstand the blow and, with a stagger, actually fell and rolled down the cliff. Nangong Luoyun pried open his eyes with great difficulty. Now the howling winds and violent storm had long since stopped. The dense dark clouds had also dispersed. Overhead were clear skies for thousands of miles. Below were the battle-devastated surroundings. Luo Luo. Nangong Luoyun anxiously sat up. Because he rose too fast, the movement tore at his wounds, and Nangong Luoyun once again spit out a mouthful of blood. This battle with Fairy Yanxia was the most intense battle in his life. Adding on the collateral damage from that lightning ball at the end, Nangong Luoyun's heavy internal injuries multiplied. But his face showed no trace of being severely injured. Nangong Luoyun held his chest and impatiently stood up, his gaze anxiously searching in all directions. Although he threw her out, he had used up his remaining strength to protect her. But his Luo Luo's body was so weak with such heavy injuries. Even a mere breeze and the slight movement of a blade of grass would threaten her life. Nangong Luoyun anxiously strode forward, however, with a slip of his foot, his already critically wounded body fell pitifully to the ground. He carelessly wiped away the blood that had seeped out from the corner of his lips and hurriedly pushed himself up, looking around anxiously. Luo Luo. Luo Luo. Every time he shouted, He would always cough up a mouthful of blood. But he completely paid no attention to it, walking as he shouted and shouting as he coughed. Suddenly, he caught sight of a fragile white-colored silhouette in the distance. She laid there motionless. Her extremely beautiful features were stained with rainwater, and that deathly pale complexion had no trace of color. Her eyes were tightly shut, and her thin weak body seemed nearly transparent. Nangong Liuyun's legs froze in place as if they were replaced with lead. His throat grew tight and became dry. Su Luo's finger moved a little. Nangong Liuyun's eyes gleamed with a ray of hope. That pair of legs which were rooted to the ground finally hurriedly walked over to Su Luo. Stones scattered around, making the landscape rugged and uneven. Yet Su Luo was lying upon a soft patch of grass. Nangong Luyun crouched before her, held her hand and nervously gazed at her. Her face was ghastly pale as paper with a gossamer of breath, as if it would cut off in the next second. At this moment, Nangong Luyun could only feel great pain in his chest. That touch of pain gradually grew more fierce, finally as strong as wine. Luo Luo, Nangong Luyun squeezed out an ugly smile. Luo Luo, it's me. Wake up. But his only response was Su Luo's inconsistent and disjointed breathing. Nangong Liuyun's voice grew hoarse as he firmly held her hand tight. Luo Luo. Nangong Luyun, who have never been frantic, at this moment was shaken and confused, about to lose his mind from fear. Her breaths were very weak, very faint, almost indiscernible. At this moment, Nangong Liuyun's eyes failed to live up to expectations and reddened. It hazed over with moisture. Luo Luo, sorry, I'm sorry. He tightly hugged her, burying his face in her shoulder, and apologized continuously. If he had not obstinately left, if he had not returned too late, then how would his Luo Luo have become like this? Nangong Liuyun's suppressed sobs involuntarily escaped intermittently. But his reply was Su Luo's tightly shut eyes and gradually cooling body. Nangong Luyun abruptly discovered her body's condition, and his complexion turned pale as snow from fear. Luo Luo. Luo Luo. Quickly wake up, wake up. Nangong Luyun frenziedly shook her body. Chapter 991, Near Death, 2. Tears encased those originally ice-cold, arrogant but now shaken and lost pair of eyes. But no matter how he shook her, Su Luo still remained motionless with eyes tightly shut. Luo Luo. Nangong Luyun called out loudly. What to do? What should he do? Ever composed as the sea-stabilizing divine needle, 1. Nangong Luyun, who had never been frantic in this instant, his mind was completely blank. Sensing Su Luo's body gradually becoming ice-cold, without another word, Nangong Luyun quickly transferred his own spirit energy into Su Luo's body. Starting with such forceful spirit energy, how could the weak Su Luo endure it? Puffed, Su Luo violently spat forth a mouthful of blood. Luo Luo. How do you feel? Is it serious? Nangong Luyun held Su Luo's deathly pale little face and eagerly asked. But after Su Luo finished vomiting blood, because of the severe jolt to her psyche, she fainted once again without even opening her eyes. Luo Luo, I'll definitely save you, you'll definitely be fine, definitely. Nangong Liuyun's composure had already been completely obliterated. He gathered the spirit energy into a thin strand of hot air, and slowly sent it into Su Luo's chest cavity. Because he gave her his spirit energy, Nangong Liuyun's originally heavily damaged organs' condition worsened even more. But all his attention was on Su Luo's body, and he didn't even glance at his own injuries. Nangong Luyun maintained this posture, and the delicately thin spirit energy flowed endlessly into Su Luo's body like a small brook. Su Luo's originally body that was becoming ice-cold, after accepting this strand of spirit energy, gradually began to recover. Although the recovery was extremely slow, barely visible, but Nangong Luyun was already ecstatic to the point of going insane. With a trembling hand, he carefully compressed his spirit energy and sent it to Su Luo in an endlessly stream. He maintained this position for a full 3 days and 3 nights. On this day, the skies gradually grew dark again. Nangong Luyun glanced at the skies and his ink-black eyebrows slightly creased. It was about to rain soon. He gazed tenderly at Su Luo in his arms. Her palm-sized small face remained ghastly pale and her breathing was still weak, but compared to before when he found her, her condition was already a bit better. Nangong Luoyun carefully picked her up, as if he were carrying the world's most precious treasure. Below the cliff was scattered stones and a rugged landscape, with no way out. These few days, while treating Su Luo, Nangong Luoyun's heavy injuries had also gradually recovered. Nangong Luoyun carried Su Luo with a few jumps, flew up the cliff. Above the cliff, as far as the eye could see, was charred land. Once, this was Swallow Cloud Mountain Range's highest cliff. Here, ancient trees reached the heavens and stood shoulder to shoulder with the sky. Here, the skies were covered and for a long time sunlight could not be seen. Yet, ever since that great battle and that incomparably powerful lightning ball, this jungle area had instantly become a stretch of scorched earth. Hundreds and thousands of years of nurturing, now only ashes remained. Suddenly, Nangong Luoyun's eyes flashed slightly. He actually saw a mound of scorched black earth, not far from him, move slightly. Nangong Luoyun held Su Luo protectively to him, deeply afraid that she would suffer a tiny bit of mishap. That very small lump of black earth was slowly lifted up. Very quickly, a tiny animal drilled out from below. One could only a pitch-black body, nearly unable to discern its original appearance. But those pair of foolishly adorable, watery large eyes let Nangong Luoyun recognize it with one glance. The little divine dragon. That small thing looked as if it was entirely smeared with ink, was actually that most precious bloodline among the dragon race, the little divine dragon. Little divine dragon defensively stared at Nangong Luoyun for a while. Suddenly, his gaze turned toward Su Luo. With a few bounds, the little divine dragon had already rushed toward Su Luo. 1. See Stabilizing Divine Needle. Ding Hai Shenjun is another name for Jin Gu Bang, Golden Cudgel, a weapon wielded by Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Journey to the West. It was figuratively known as a stabilizing force because before Sun Wukong, nobody could lift it in the underwater palace of the Dragon King. Chapter 992, Near Death 3. The little divine dragon ran to Su Luo's side in 2 to 3 steps. Seeing that his little owner's eyes were tightly closed, the little divine dragon extended his small paw to lightly touch Su Luo's face. Su Luo, with eyes closed, lay motionlessly in Nangong Luoyun's embrace. The little divine dragon was anxious, his 2 small paws pulled at Su Luo's hand, as if trying to pull her awake. However, basically it was of no use. Suddenly, the little divine dragon's eyes flashed slightly. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared. Nangong Luoyun watched his disappearing small figure, his phoenix eyes narrowing slightly. The little divine dragon was very intelligent. Could it be that he had a way to wake up Luo Luo? Although he was not 100% certain, if there was a bit hope, then it would always be better than none. Nangong Luoyun looked for a place with wind in the back. From the space bag, he took out a pure white soft woolen blanket and tightly wrapped it around Su Luo's body. If Ziyan was still here, she would certainly be shocked. She would never have expected that one of the 2 space bags from the auction that day would end up in Nangong Luoyun's hands. Suddenly, Nangong Luoyun discovered that Su Luo's hands and feet were somewhat cold. His eyes momentarily shrunk. When Nangong Luoyun was on top of the cliff, he had withdrawn his spirit power. Up until now, it was probably about the time it took to burn 1 stick of incense. However, Nangong Luoyun had sorrowfully discovered, just within a short period of time to burn 1 stick of incense, his Luo Luo's body had once again begun to grow cold. Once she was without his spirit energy, Luo Luo's life force would rapidly decline. Nangong Luoyun's heart suddenly hurt deeply, and his eyes soured. Without demur, he compressed his spirit energy into a thread, little by little inserting it into Su Luo's chest cavity. Only this discovery made Nangong Luoyun both sad and happy at the same time. The sad part was that he didn't know when Luo Luo would wake up. The happy part was that as long as he stayed by her side, he could ensure that she didn't die. The surroundings were very quiet. So quiet as to be almost strange. On this scorched black earth, within a range of tens of kilometers, there were no insect or bird calls. No birds flying by nor beasts walking by, simply nothing at all in the surroundings. The only sound was the whooshing of the wind rushing past one's ears. Nangong Luoyuan watched his Luo in a daze. Now Su Luo's complexion gradually warmed up again, but it only warmed up. It was still terribly pale. In merely several days of effort, she had become so terribly thin. Her body was so weak that it seemed as if she would fall apart just by a puff of wind. Nangong Luoyuan didn't have the heart to look. He embraced Su Luo tightly and buried his head deeply in her shoulder. Luo, what should I do with you? What should I do to make you wake up again? Endless regret, like hundreds of thousands of ants gnawing at Nangong Luoyuan's heart. It hurt so much that he nearly suffocated. Just at this moment, a slight sound of movement came from up front. The little divine dragon's mouth held a bundle of weeds and rushed over in a flash like a plump black cloud. The little divine dragon placed all of the herbal medicine on Su Luo's chest. These grasses are... Nangong Luoyuan's expression seemed slightly hesitant. He was not a wood elemental mage, so his knowledge of medicinal herbs was not deep. These several types of medical herbs weren't very common, therefore, he didn't recognize any of them at this moment. Awo. The little divine dragon tried to act it out, but finally pulled out a book from Su Luo's bosom. Spirit Dance Steps Law? Nangong Luoyuan's eyes sunk slightly. The Western Jin royal family's treasure that subdued the country, Spirit Dance Steps Law. It actually appeared in Su Luo's bosom? Suddenly, Nangong Luoyuan's expression slightly flashed. Don't tell me, Luo and Ouyang Yunqi's relationship was merely based on this Spirit Dance Steps Law? The little divine dragon once again acted it out, painting the blank pages with medicinal juice. Don't tell me that this Spirit Dance Steps Law had another profound mystery in it? Nangong Luoyuan speculated secretly in his heart. The little divine dragon picked out 3 kinds of medicinal herbs. But because the medicinal herb plants were relatively large, those small paws of the little divine dragon were unable to grab them, making him so anxious that he kept scratching his ear. Chapter 993, Near Death 4. Although Nangong Luoyuan didn't know what the little divine dragon was trying to sell, but seeing him methodically carrying out a procedure, he had a bit more confidence in him. Rather than saying he had a little confidence in the little divine dragon, it would be better to say that Nangong Luoyuan believed in the dragon race's inherent memory. I'll do it. Nangong Luoyuan had one hand on Su Luo's chest cavity, sending her a steady flow of spirit power. The other hand squeezed out the juices from the 3 types of medicinal herbs and was smearing it on the blank pages of Spirit Dance Steps Law. Nangong Luoyuan had very skillful hands. From top to bottom, left to right, he exercised perfect control when smearing the herbal juice. After he painted 2 complete lines, the herbal juice had already dyed the entire page. As the light green herbal juice smeared past, subsequently, paragraph after paragraph of black-colored writing appeared. Just when Nangong Luoyuan was about to flip to the second page, the little divine dragon shook his head with all his might. What are you doing? Nangong Luoyuan frowned slightly. Awo. The little divine dragon, pointing at his own head, and again pointed at that densely packed paragraphs of writing that had appeared afterwards. Only Su Luo alone was able to communicate with the little divine dragon. Now Su Luo remained unconscious. Nangong Luoyuan could only depend on guessing to communicate with the little divine dragon. However, Nangong Luoyuan's comprehension abilities had always been strong. Nangong Luoyuan half muttered to himself. His voice was clear and cold, like pearls falling into a jade tray. Memorize it? The small divine dragon, having heard what was said, repeatedly nodded his little head. Nangong Luoyuan believed in the little divine dragon's inherent memory. As a result, he swept a glance at the writings on the paper. However, what astonished him was in no more than the blink of an eye. This paragraph of writing unexpectedly disappeared completely once again. Such a mystical secret book. When Nangong Luoyuan once again took some herbal juice to wipe away at it, that writing refused to appear again. Awo. The little divine dragon grabbed his head from being at a loss, and pointed at that page of paper that had been restored to its original state. He was exceedingly angry. Such rapid speed, who could memorize it? It's not like he was an immortal. The little divine dragon was extremely indignant. Nangong Luoyuan, holding the herbal juice, didn't know whether he should continue to brush the pages with it. The little divine dragon was afraid that Nangong Luoyun would forget those words. He pointed to the book, then pointed to Nangong Luoyun's lips, and lastly pointed to Su Luo's ear. Nangong Luoyun had always been highly intelligent. The little divine dragon's hints were already very clear. Will it be useful like this? Nangong Luoyun's thick eyebrows wrinkled somewhat in disbelief. Awar. The little divine dragon nodded his head with complete confidence, and at the same time he didn't forget to pat his own little chest. However, the longer Nangong Luoyun looked at this little guy, the more unreliable he seemed to Nangong Luoyun. Awar. The little divine dragon threateningly glared at Nangong Luoyun. If it weren't for the owner being forced to sever the connection with himself, if it weren't for the fact that he couldn't speak, the little divine dragon would have already done it himself. Nangong Luoyun felt staying idle was still being idle. Consequently, he began to recite the first move of Spirit Dance Steps Law to Su Luo. Spirit Dance Steps Law was very profound and treacherous to learn. The speed is abstruse, countless changes. The source of all things gives birth to yin and yang. The yin and yang gives birth to 4 divisions. All of a sudden, Su Luo's finger moved slightly. How could Nangong Luoyun, who had continuously observed Su Luo so carefully, not know? In a flash, a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. He never expected that this Spirit Dance Steps Law could really be useful to his Luo. Nangong Luoyun lifted up his eyes to look towards the little divine dragon. At this moment, the little divine dragon obediently sat on his knees to the side, joyously gazing at Su Luo. This little dragon wasn't picked up in vain. At a critical moment, he was still a bit useful. Nangong Luoyun was also knowledgeable and thought a little more very quickly. All of his attention was on Su Luo's body. He slowed down his speech and recited out, word by word, the Spirit Dance Steps Law's first move. Chapter 994. Life hanging by a thread. 1. Pain. As if her whole body had been crushed by the wheels of a heavy-duty truck. So painful that Su Luo almost suffocated. By her ears was a clear voice reading to her. Buzz buzz, like a mosquito being noisy. This voice that was reciting could make a person twitchy, but was like the sound of a clear cold spring. It unhurriedly continuing to recite. Unexpectedly, it formed into beautiful notes could refresh a person's mind. Su Luo feel the pain on her body as if her heart was being peeled, also eased a lot. Su Luo's mind gradually became clear-headed. Only at this moment did she recognize that the owner of the overly pleasant to hear and familiar voice belongs to Nangong Luoyun. Nangong Luoyun. This name made Su Luo's heart suddenly ache, a kind of sour, astringent and peculiar feeling filling her heart. That day he left without looking back so decisively. Su Luo wanted to open her eyes, but discovered that her eyes seemed to be glued together, unable to open no matter what she did. She wanted to open her mouth, but found she was unable to move at all. She tried very hard for a long time and still there was no result. In the end, Su Luo had no choice but to give up. After she calmed down, she heard the words that Nangong Luoyun was reciting. Spirit Dance Steps Law? Su Luo's heart was immediately ecstatic. Her physical body had been heavily wounded, but her spirit was still undamaged. To cultivate the spirit dance steps in her space right now was a pretty good idea. As a result, Su Luo calmed down, following along those words. She silently moved her power. Nangong Luoyun finished reciting it once through. Suddenly, he discovered that Su Luo could move her body's spirit power, and he couldn't help but be ecstatic. Luo, you will definitely be fine, definitely. Nangong Luoyun's hand pressed up against Su Luo's chest cavity, sending in an endless steady flow of spirit power, providing warmth to her heavily damaged body. When Su Luo absorbed Nangong Luoyun's spirit power, her cultivation was even more easier, like a fish swimming in water. However, what would it take for you to wake up? On this mountain peak, Nangong Luoyun had maintained this position for no less than 10 days in length. In these 10 days he didn't dare to slack off nor relax a tiny bit. However, regardless of how carefully he looked after her, his Luo showed no signs of waking up. Although she could circulate her spirit power with great difficulty, but once he relaxed, her life force would lessen. This was absolutely not a good long-term strategy. Nangong Luoyun pondered over it, and still decided to go look for Grandmaster Rong Yun. He stood up, carrying Su Luo in his arms, and the little divine dragon cleverly jumped onto his shoulder. Nangong Luyun paused a bit, but didn't say anything and strided forward, leaving resolutely. Because Nangong Luyun was injured himself and Su Luo couldn't leave his side, he didn't carefully search this area. Therefore, he still didn't know that old witch Yin Xia didn't die in that huge explosion. This matter should be explained from the time when that lightning ball exploded. At that time, the lightning ball had followed Fairy Yin Xia and exploded over her head. In the normal course of events, regardless of how tyrannical Fairy Yin Xia's strength was, she wouldn't have been able to avoid this power of heaven and earth. However, exceptionally strong experts would always have some life-saving hidden trump cards, especially an expert like Fairy Yin Xia. Just when the lightning ball was about to explode, Fairy Yin Xia clenched her teeth and resolutely dispersed a protective net. This was a life-saving spirit tool she had obtained from the Immortal Palace when she was young. This protective net could stop one super-strong attack by an expert. Even after so many years and many life experiences, Fairy Yin Xia Fairy had never even thought of using this trump card. When the 10 great aristocratic families, gold-plated killers and countless other people had chased after her to kill her, she had always averted those disasters. However now, she was forced to such dire circumstances by a youngster. Fairy Yin Xia was extremely regretful, extremely angry, but she had no other choice. Chapter 995. Life Hanging by a Thread 2. Fairy Yin Xia could only resort to using this life-saving trump card. No matter how unreconciled she might be, there was no other method that would work. However, what Fairy Yin Xia never expected was that even with this protective net, it was still unable to block all of the lightning ball's might. Fairy Yin Xia continuously ran, running non-stop. Endless lightning the size of a country burst out like a flood, drowning Fairy Yin Xia in a flash. Ultimately, she fainted. She didn't know how long she was unconscious for before slowly working up. When she opened her eyes, she discovered a person was by her side. It was the back of a tall man who was currently making kanji in this cave. Fairy Yin Xia recognized this person at a glance. Yin Qi turned around, his starlight-filled eyes flashing slightly. Master. No one would have imagined that Fairy Yin Xia was actually Yin Qi's teacher. But this was indeed the truth. Otherwise, with Western Jin's royal family's resources, in just a few short years, how could they successfully train such a talented and handsome person like Ouyang Yunqi? However, even the old emperor didn't know that Ouyang Yunqi's master was actually Fairy Yin Xia. Fairy Yin Xia leaned against the cave wall. At the moment, her complexion was as pale as snow and her lips were chapped. She had on a dispirited expression. Fairy Yin Xia circulated her spirit power to examine her own wounds. This examination left her in despair. Even though she didn't die on the spot, but her entire body's cultivation was mostly gone. At this moment, her cultivation was less than 10% of her original cultivation. So many years of unremitted perseverance in cultivation. She was about to set foot on the road to the peak of the strongest experts. In the end, it was ruined in a huge battle with a youngster from the younger generation. Fairy Yin Xia couldn't inhale a breath, it was stuck there, and her eyes opened wide until they were perfectly round. Master. Yin Qi abandoned the kanji that was in the pot and, with quick steps, walked to Fairy Yin Xia's side. Fairy Yin Xia's complexion was very ugly, as if she would collapse in the next moment. Yin Qi continuously patted Fairy Yin Xia's back. Master, don't worry, don't be anxious. Following Yin Qi's words, Fairy Yin Xia abruptly spurted out a mouthful of blood. Pfff, this mouthful of blood went on for a very long time, nearly spraying over the entire floor. Fairy Yin Xia spit out her heart's blood. She only felt limp, weak and powerless from head to toe. Her breathing was very feeble. She knew her time was limited. However, sinister and malicious rays of light appeared in Fairy Yin Xia's eyes. Her heart wasn't resigned to this ending. So many years of hard work was destroyed in the hands of a guy from the younger generation. How could she be resigned to this? In addition, there was still Su Luo, that loathsome girl. She actually had that kind of male perfection that adored her. Her heart was not resigned. Fairy Yanxia dispiritedly leaned against the wall, her pair of eyes unwaveringly staring at Yunqi. Her complexion was as pale as a ghost. Yunqi. That's right, she still had Yunqi. Even if she died, she absolutely wouldn't let those people have an easy time. Yunqi's blood ran cold from being stared at by Fairy Yanxia. Feeling his blood run cold, he slowly called out, "Master, kneel down." In Fairy Yanxia's excitement, she once again started to cough up blood continuously. Yunqi silently knelt down. "You want to obtain that loathsome girl?" Fairy Yanxia's sinister eyes stared unwaveringly at Yunqi. Disciple doesn't understand what master is saying. Yunqi's pair of hands clenched into fists. However, the veins on the back of his hands protruded out, showing the stirred-up emotions in his heart. Fairy Yanxia coldly snorted. "You like Su Luo, that cheap girl, don't believe master doesn't know." Yunqi used silence to answer her, therefore tacitly agreeing with her. "Do you want to obtain her or not?" After she waited in silence for a very long time, Fairy Yanxia suddenly asked, "Want? How could he not want her? Luo originally was his fiancée. Do you want to kill Nangong Luyin?" Fairy Yanxia shivered with excitement from head to foot. Yunqi's eyes suddenly shone. Then it once again darkened in a flash. Chapter 996. Life Hanging by a Thread 3. Master, disciple is unable to defeat him. A touch of treacherous radiance flashed through Yunqi's fluid eyes. Fairy Yanxia heavily snorted. "Worthless thing. How could my Yanxia's disciple speak such demoralizing words?" "Master." Yunqi slowly lifted up his head. The original bleak gaze was now like the stars in the night sky, flashing rays of light. "Master, you have a method?" Fairy Yanxia coldly snorted. "There is a method, however. You need to pay a heavy price." Yunqi solemnly nodded. "The hatred of seizing my wife is absolutely irreconcilable. So long as I can defeat him, no matter what the price, disciple will not hesitate to do so." "Good. Very good." Fairy Yanxia howled with laughter. "If you want to be strong within a short time, there is only one method, that is to enter the demonic path." "Enter the demonic path?" Yunqi's thick eyebrows knitted slightly. Fairy Yanxia repeatedly sneered. "Yunqi, do you still want Nangong Luyin to grab your neck and be powerless when being trampled upon? Su Luo, that cheap girl, abandoned you. Isn't it because you are weak, because you are weaker than Nangong Luyin? So no matter how you beseech her, she will never return to your side. Yunqi, don't be naive. This is a world where the strong is respected. Here only strength is the hard-principled reasoning. Entering the demonic path, your strength can be promoted in a very short time. If you don't enter the demonic path, you will be chased to be killed by Nangong Luyin until there's no gate to heaven and no road to hell." Fairy Yanxia threw out these words, with each sentence stabbing at Yunqi's heart. Enter the demonic path. The scene that day on the overhanging cliff now appeared before Yunqi's eyes. Su Luo had repeated over and over again that she didn't want him. Nangong Luyin was grabbing him by the neck, as if he was about to cut the flesh off a fish on the cutting board. Yunqi's hands clenched into tight fists. Able to injure master to this degree, Nangong Luyin's strength had already become powerful to an unfathomable stage. Even if he urged the horses on, he still couldn't catch up. Only through the demonic path. Enter the demonic path. Enter the demonic path. These 4 words were like demons firmly nipping at Yunqi's heart. "Okay." Yunqi thought for a while and finally said one word. Seeing that Yunqi had agreed, the corner of Fairy Yanxia's mouth hooked into a sinister sneer. "You will swear this life, if you don't kill Nangong Luyin, you will not be a man." Fairy Yanxia, in an ice-cold manner, commanded, "I swear this life, if I don't kill Nangong Luyin, I will not be a man." Yunqi, enunciating each word clearly, and made the vow. "You will swear this life, don't kill. Don't marry Su Luo, you will not be a man." Fairy Yanxia knew Yunqi would never be able to kill Su Luo. However, everyone could tell, the person Su Luo liked was Nangong Luyin. Asking her to marry another person was worse than killing her. The taunting sneer at the corner of Fairy Yanxia's mouth became increasingly stronger. Okay, I Yunqi swear this life if I don't marry Su Luo, I will not be a man. Yunqi's voice was unprecedentedly firm. Luo was his from the beginning, no one could snatch her away from his side. Very good. Fairy Yanxia's spirit was a lot better because of the excitement just now. Now she calmed down and once again couldn't stop coughing. She was coughing out mouthful after mouthful of blood. Because Master's time is limited, now let's begin to cultivate. Fairy Yanxia said as she coughed out blood at the same time. Back in the day, she had accidentally obtained a demon lord's buried treasures. That protective net was one of the treasures from there. Another treasure was Peak of the Demonic Path. Only males could cultivate Peak of the Demonic Path, otherwise, Fairy Yanxia would have already cultivated it. As a result, in this quiet cave, a master and disciple pair began to cultivate the Demonic Path secret book day and night. Chapter 997. Life Hanging by a Thread 4. The demonic path was brutal and reeked of blood, therefore, the world wouldn't stand for it. The demon lord from back then had tyrannical strength and almost swept away all the 10 powerful families on this continent. Anybody that resisted was killed. If monks hindered, he would kill Buddha. Within a long period of time, he fought all under the heavens and became a person without rival. Now Yunqi had inherited this old guy's legacy. Very quickly, a new demon lord would rise up again from this generation. Nangong Luoyan carried Su Luo and traveled throughout the night towards Cloud Mist Peak. Along the way, he split through the stars and scattered the moon in his haste to reach his destination. Within a day's effort, Nangong Luoyan had already arrived at Cloud Mist Peak with Su Luo. At this moment, Nangong Luoyan's complexion was slightly pale. With regards to that battle, he had also sustained heavy injuries. But he devoted all of his energy wholeheartedly on Su Luo, without the slightest concern for his own injuries. It was also fortunate that his body's foundation was good, so these days, it had gradually healed itself. Cloud Mist Peak, standing tall among the clouds. Nangong Luoyan carried Su Luo, taking off and landing, continuously climbing upwards. His body was very steady. The pair of hands holding Su Luo didn't shake a tiny bit. To reach the top of Cloud Mist Peak, before Su Luo and Apothecary Lung had walked for almost an entire night. But now, Nangong Luoyan took less time than making a small cup of tea to reach the peak. Ziran heard the sounds of activity and quickly walked out. You are. Ziran saw a very tall figure standing in front of him. Ziran's first impression was, this was an extremely strong and extremely cold man. Nangong Luoyan didn't speak. His entire body gave off a chill like the king of the underworld. His gaze shot towards Ziran. With an ice-cold and indifferent tone, he said, Where is Grandmaster Rong Yin? Being hit by Nangong Luoyan's gaze, Ziran's body stiffened for a split second. This man was too terrifying. He was just about to speak when he saw the young lady in Nangong Luoyan's arms. Little junior sister? Ziran quickly walked up to Nangong Luoyan and anxiously reached out to catch Su Luo. Many thanks to your distinguished self for delivering little junior sister back to us. However, a matter beyond Ziran's expectations was that this man, whose entire body gave off a terrifying aura, actually wouldn't hand over little junior sister to him. Rather, he grandiosely carried little junior sister and quickly walked towards the inner courtyard. Moreover, how could he know which courtyard little junior sister lived in? Although little junior sister's courtyard indeed had a bit more flowers and plants, was a little more delicate, but how could he be as familiar with her courtyard as if it was his own? If he didn't recall incorrectly, wasn't this the first time this fiend-like male had came to Cloud Mist Peak? Ziran kept a stiff smile on his face, and followed after Nangong Luoyan to go in and out of corridors. Ziran knew that this person's strength was extraordinarily powerful, and was not someone he could contend against. Furthermore, he also didn't know where Ziyu had gone off to. There wasn't even a tiny bit of news about him. Ziran saw this frightening man before him very carefully place little junior sister on the bed. That action was inconceivably gentle, as if she was a fragile porcelain doll in his arms. In the end, What is the matter with little junior sister? Ziran wanted to move in closer. However, Nangong Luyan waved his hand. Ziran, unable to suppress it, with thump thump thump, repeatedly fell back by 7 steps. Finally, with a clang sound, his head hit the door frame. Ziran held the back of his head, extremely dumbfounded. This here was Cloud Mist Peak. Obviously he was the hosta. Why did it seem as if he was now the intruder? Nangong Luyan tenderly covered Su Luo with a quilt. After he used spirit power to examine her body, only then did he relax slightly. Fortunately, the shaking along the way had not harmed her. Where is Grandmaster Rong Yin? Nangong Luyan held Su Luo's hand and gazed at her tenderly. But the words he spoke were ice-cold and dripping with blood, penetrated with an aura of about to vent his anger that made people tremble with fear. He said these words to Ziran. Chapter 998. Life Hanging by a Thread 5. Master. Ziran shook his head. After Master left the last time, he hasn't returned since then. Now on this Cloud Mist Peak, there was only him alone. When Nangong Luyan heard what was said, his sword-like eyebrows wrinkled slightly and his cold gaze shot towards Ziran. Not here? Yes, he is indeed out. Otherwise, with little junior sister being wounded to this extent, even if you didn't ask, Master would have already come out earlier. Ziran said as if it was rightfully so. While he spoke, he also stood on tiptoe, trying to take a peek at his little junior sister. Alas! This time, when little junior sister went out, it could clearly be seen that she had eaten a lot of suffering. Her entire person had thinned down a whole circle, until she was merely skin and bones, really pitiful. Nangong Luyan suddenly stood up, and his gaze shot out energetic light. Take good care of Luo Luo. Before his last words faded, Nangong Luoyun's figure had already disappeared. Ziran's eyes flashed slightly. This person's speed had already reached the state of perfection. Although he was still a distance away from Masters, but it wasn't far. So young but with such luck? Ziran shook his head. The gap between people was sometimes really huge. However, with an open and above-board opportunity to take care of little junior sister, senior brother Ziran naturally would not decline it. He quickly walked towards Su Luo and drew out her wrist to take her pulse. This check of her pulse made Ziran jump from fright. Little junior sister's pulse was so weak and discontinuous that if he did not look carefully, he simply could not have felt it. Ziran once again examined her from top to bottom, and his expression had already become very ugly. No wonder that person kept saying he came to see Master. In this world, only Master might be able to cure little junior sister's injury. Just when Ziran was indulging in flights of fancy, suddenly, the entire Cloud Mist Peak shook. Immediately after, was a world-shaking noise. Jufeng Tower. Ziran's complexion immediately changed. Jufeng Tower was where Master cultivated. What had happened over there? Without saying anything further, he quickly rushed out. His footsteps had just reached the doorway, when he saw the towering Jufeng Tower collapse with a loud rumble. The Jufeng Tower that was in force with Master's spirit power collapsed. It actually collapsed. The moment when Jufeng Tower collapsed, a terrifying figure appeared in midair. One could only see his pair of hands crossed behind his back, ink-black clothing being torn by the wind. His expression was like an Azura from hell, coldly detached and cruel. Jufeng Tower was actually forcibly toppled by him. Ziran's face paled. He pointed at the godlike Nangong Luyan in midair, and for a long time could not say a word. This person had huge courage. Nangong Luyan landed as if nothing happened. He did not even glance sideways as he walked towards Su Luo's courtyard. Ziran called out to stop Nangong Luyan, who was walking in haste. Is something the matter? Nangong Luoyun's sharp eyebrows furrowed. According to Nangong Luoyun's past temperament, he would never pay heed to anyone after he returned. However, seeing that this person was an advanced apothecary and before Grandmaster Rong Yun's return, this person was still barely useful, so he decided to give Ziran a chance to speak. Ziran's words got stuck in his throat by Nangong Luoyun's glare, unable to go up nor down. That place is where Master cultivates. In the end, Ziran still decided to tell the truth. Nangong Luyan nodded, expressing that he knew. That was a symbol of Cloud Mist Peak. Ziran became anxious. Nangong Luyan wordlessly nodded. Ziran always had a good temper, but was still provoked to anger by Nangong Luyan. He furiously glared at Nangong Luyan. When Master comes back, see how you will explain everything to him. Nangong Luyan's expression did not change and only frowned slightly. Able to infuriate him enough for him to return would be the best outcome. Finished saying this, R1. Highness Prince Jean confidently and with ease, flung his sleeves and left. 1. Yes, the author used R. Saying His Highness Prince Jean belongs to us readers? Like a hot potato I will pass him on. But I am keeping Meng Meng. Chapter 999. Rong Yun's Fury, 1. If Su Luo knew that toppling the Jufeng Tower could call back Grandmaster Rong Yun, then she would not have run so hard when Fairy Yan Xia was chasing to kill her. She would have directly drawn the old witch to topple the tower, and everything would be good. A pity Su Luo didn't know about it at all. Perhaps Nangong Luyan had wanted to anger Su Luo, until she jumped awake from her unconscious state. As a result, when he returned to Su Luo's side, he made a show of being serious and clearly told her every detail. He even told her about the amount of force he used to hit the wall. However, Su Luo's eyes still remained closed, completely lacking any signs of waking up. Nangong Luyan refused to leave Su Luo's side, and openly accompanied her. With great care he personally took care of her. These several days he had continuously sent Su Luo his spirit power. On top of this he had just toppled Jufeng Tower, so now, his complexion was somewhat pale. Ziran came in carrying a tray. Seeing Nangong Luoyun's pale complexion he frowned. From the beginning, this is not a good long-term plan. Nangong Luyan turned a deaf ear, and did not even look at him. His gaze was tenderly staring at his darling Luo Luo. Ziran handed a cup to Nangong Luyan. This is the celestial spirit water left behind by little junior sister before leaving. She had previously said that although high-grade celestial spirit water cannot revive the dead, as for meat and bones, its medicinal effectiveness is still pretty good. Nangong Luyan took the offered cup. With one glance, he recognized that this was indeed Su Luo's celestial spirit water. Within her space, Su Luo heard the dialogue between these two people, and immediately, her eyes lit up. Celestial spirit water. That's right, quickly feed her physical body the celestial spirit water. This was the legendary medicine that was guaranteed to cure all illnesses. Only, it was a pity that she was currently in the spirit state, unable to control her physical body. Otherwise, how could she not have however much celestial spirit water she wanted? Nangong Luyan held Su Luo up and, mouthful by mouthful, fed the celestial spirit water for her to drink. Seeing Su Luo drinking it happily, Nangong Luyan slanted a glance at Ziran. Ziran spread out his hands and honestly said, "At that time little junior sister only left 2 bottles. Other than this cup, the rest was used to refine medicine." Just when Nangong Luyan was about to flare up, an oppressive pressure from a powerful expert came from outside. "Master." Having felt the familiar aura, Ziran's expression suddenly brightened. He quickly went to welcome Master. Before he could walk several steps, Grandmaster Rong Yun appeared right in front of him. Did Yan Xia come? Grandmaster Rong Yun looked at the Jufeng Tower that had collapsed with a loud rumble and frowned. His expression became unpredictable. Ziran shook his head. "Master, little junior sister has returned." Su Luo. Grandmaster Rong Yun, with one fling of his wide clothing, walked inside. "You tell me about it simply." Grandmaster Rong Yun suddenly had a bad premonition. He who had always been calm, at this moment, in an indescribable way, seemed slightly rattled. Ziran followed after Grandmaster Rong Yun with quick steps and explained as he walked by Grandmaster Rong Yun's side. Little junior sister was carried back by a person. She had received heavy injuries, moreover her face. When Ziran recalled this matter, he felt it was too inconceivable. However, Grandmaster Rong Yun's focus was on the latter half of what he said. His esteemed self suddenly stopped and glared at Ziran with an ice-cold expression. What happened to her face? Grandmaster Rong Yin had always been gentle. He had never spoken so swiftly and in such a strict tone. Ziran stared blankly for a while before finding his voice. Little junior sister's face has become very beautiful, a perfect beauty. Having heard what was said, Grandmaster Rong Yin's body startled to a stop as he stared blankly. Could it be that the alter the appearance to change the reflection technique had failed? Grandmaster Rong Yin clenched his fists and quickly walked inside. When Grandmaster Rong Yin first entered, he saw Nangong Luoyan giving Su Luo his spirit power. Grandmaster Rong Yin's eyes unconsciously landed on Su Luo's face. This face. Grandmaster Rong Yin could not suppress it, and his figure swayed repeatedly. Chapter 1000, Rong Yin's Fury 2. Master. Ziran hurriedly went to support Master. The formidably strong Master. How was it that he could not stand stably? Ziran was extremely puzzled. Grandmaster Rong Yin supported himself with the doorframe, and took a long time to return to his senses. Resembled her, truly a splitting image. This face was a carbon copy of that person's face. Even if he turned to ashes, he would never forget this face that was branded deeply in his mind. Back then, he had predicted that Luo Luo's face would resemble hers. But he would never have imagined that it resembled hers to such a degree. This completely was the same as her from that time. Grandmaster Rong Yin walked toward Su Luo step by step, his gait somewhat hesitant. As he got closer, Grandmaster Rong Yin could clearly feel Su Luo's living breath. His complexion immediately became very ugly. He grabbed Su Luo's hand and carefully felt her pulse. Nangong Luoyun's sharp gaze was like the stars in the night sky, unblinkingly staring at Grandmaster Rong Yin. 5 organs blood clotted due to hyperemia, 5 viscera and 6 bowels were all damaged, the spirit and the soul were shaken. Grandmaster Rong Yin put down Su Luo's wrist, and his tone was as cold as a millennium-old glacier. Who did this? The always unperturbed Grandmaster Rong Yin now was like a raging tiger, furious dragon, unable to restrain his anger. Although Nangong Luoyan was of the younger generation, he also knew about Grandmaster Rong Yin and Fairy Yen Xia's matter. He coldly cast Grandmaster Rong Yin a glance. You know who it is? With regards to this subject, he took some well-deserved anger out on Grandmaster Rong Yin. If it was not because of Grandmaster Rong Yin and Old Witch Yen Xia's emotional entanglement, his precious Luo Luo would not have become cannon fodder, and would not have been chased to be killed to such dire straits. Grandmaster Rong Yin tightly clenched his fists. Yen Xia. The words had just left his mouth, when Grandmaster Rong Yin's figure had already disappeared without a trace. Ziran watched until he was distracted. All these years, Master had never been angry. Normally, Master was a gentle and lukewarm vegetarian, but who dared to forget his bad temper? He had heard before that when Master was angry, the entire city of Pingchuan was wiped out. Not a chicken nor dog was left behind. After all this time, will this matter happen once again? Ziran looked at the apathetic Nangong Luoyan. This person, if he did not have to take care of little junior sister, then he would have turned the entire world upside down by now. Little junior sister, you must wake up, otherwise this world will not be peaceful anymore. Ziran prayed that Su Luo would quickly wake up. In fact, how could Su Luo's soul state that was in her space not want to wake up? But no matter how she struggled, resisted and strived, it was of no use. In the end, Su Luo could only place her hope on the spirit dance steps law. Afterwards, when Nangong Luoyan continuously recited it, she memorized all of it. As for Grandmaster Rong Yin, don't know how Grandmaster did the search. In less than 1 day's time, he had already arrived in the cave where Fairy Yen Xia resided. Seeing Grandmaster Rong Yin descend with righteous wrath and a murderous cold aura, Fairy Yen Xia's pale face smiled. At this moment, she was emaciated, merely skin and bones. Her head was full of white hair, looking like a fully aged old woman. When she smiled, it was more frightening than a ghost. You finally came. Fairy Yen Xia exposed a mouthful of deeply cold white teeth. Grandmaster Rong Yun's gaze was like the cold snow on top of a millennium-old glacier, but was also like an explosive volcano. Yinxia, you went too far. However, the words he spoke were indifferent as smoke or fire. This soft and unhurried sentence contained all of his rage. Fairy Yinxia laughed while coughing. Rong Yun, you got angry. Before death's door, you are finally willing to be angry at me. Even getting mad at her was an extravagant hope. How could she dare to excessively demand that he would like her? Chapter 1001, Rong Yun's Fury 3. Grandmaster Rong Yun's deep eyes were as cold and sharp as a falcon's. You just hate her that much. He looked at Fairy Yinxia indifferently. Yes, I hate her. I hate her so much that I wish she would just die. Mentioning that taboo name, Fairy Yinxia immediately started to act irrationally. If it was not for that slut, how could you not want me? And still saying some brother-sister bullshit, the most nauseating was her. That slut. Before Fairy Yinxia could finish speaking, slap. One could only hear a heavy slap pass by. Fairy Yinxia's emaciated body was immediately sent flying, and she heavily smashed into a wall. The explosive sound from her hitting the wall resounded. Cough, cough, cough. While Fairy Yinxia coughed out blood, she also laughed like a maniac. She laughed until tears came out. Grandmaster Rong Yun's tall figure was rock-firm and unyielding. He stood there motionless. His face had no expression and was as cold as frost. Rong Yun. Rong Yun. Why must you defend her like this? Why? Fairy Yinxia shrieked and shouted with her heart tearing and lungs splitting open. Rong Yun indifferently looked at her as if looking at a dead person. Cough, cough, cough. Fairy Yinxia suddenly howled with laughter. Rong Yun, you are too late. You want to kill me now. It's already too late. Rong Yun remained silent. Fairy Yinxia continued to laugh like a maniac. Have you seen that cheap girl's face? Ha 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 ha, she is toast, she will certainly die. Rong Yun's expression suddenly changed. His figure was as fast as lightning, flashing by, leaving an afterimage. In the next second, he already grabbed Fairy Yinxia by the throat. Who did you tell? Ha ha ha, Fairy Yinxia laughed until tears came out. Her face was twisted into a sinister expression that was shockingly horrible to see. Who have I told? Who do you think I told this to? Ha ha ha. Rong Yun looked all around, and when he saw a dark red bloodstain in a corner, a cold light flashed through his eyes. Fairy Yinxia, who once considered herself to be unparalleled, was now like a crushed doll that was carelessly tossed on the ground by Rong Yun. Rong Yun used his finger to dip a touch of the bloodstain and sniffed it with his nose. Very quickly, his dark, thick sharp eyebrows knotted tightly. When Fairy Yinxia saw him like this, her laugh became increasingly more deranged. She even hammered at the ground with both hands as she laughed her head off. Su Luo, that cheap girl, will definitely die. She is toast. Ha, bitch. Rong Yun's always gentle and tranquil face in a flash looked like a gale storm. Right now, he simply could not restrain his rage. Haha, enter the demonic path, become the demon lord. The return of the king of demons. Ha ha ha. Fairy Yinxia seemed to have gone completely insane. At this moment, she had a head that was disheveled, and she cut a very sorry figure. Her entire person seemed to have sunk into some kind of a dream, her eyes lifeless and blurred. However, she clearly seemed very happy and very excited, continuously laughing and laughing. Speak, where is that person? Rong Yun very fiercely squeezed Fairy Yinxia's emaciated shoulders and shook her with a lot of strength. The strength was so great that it nearly shook Fairy Yinxia into pieces. However, Fairy Yinxia continued to laugh, laughing like a dimwit, laughing non-stop. Rong Yun's expression suddenly seemed somewhat anxious. In this world, there shouldn't be something that would make Rong Yun anxious, but right now, he was definitely impatient and uneasy. Who is that person? Rong Yun clenched Fairy Yinxia's Lingtai acupuncture point. Lingtai acupuncture point was the location where a cultivator's powers were stored. Fairy Yinxia was sober for a split second, and suddenly she shouted, Yinqi, run! Quickly run! Do not let Rong Yun catch you. Yinqi! Yinqi! Peak of the demonic path! You have to become the demon lord. You must become the demon lord. Rong Yun clenched both fists tightly as his heart gradually sank to the floor. Chapter 1002, Rong Yun's Fury 4. He never imagined that the peak of the demonic path that was lost from back then would appear in Fairy Yanxia's hands. She actually kept it for this many years and only facing death's door. Did she pass it on? Where is he? Quickly speak. Rong Yun very fiercely squeezed Fairy Yanxia's shoulders. The strength he used was astonishing. Fairy Yanxia suddenly coughed loudly, mouthful after mouthful of blood madly spraying out. It appeared both shocking and terrifying. Yanhua. Killed. Little princess. Ha. Ha ha. Yinqi will become the demon lord. He must kill her, ha 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 ha. Under fits of wild laughter, Fairy Yanxia suddenly died. She closed her eyes forever and wordlessly left. Even Yinqi didn't expect that the old witch Yanxia would make this move in the end. Rong Yun's face was cold as he maliciously glared at her motionless body, the cold light bubbling forth from his eyes. Just because Yanhua killed that little princess, it resulted in him using the alter the appearance to change the reflection technique after Luo Luo was born, trying to protect her. However, the fists at Rong Yun's side clenched tightly. Yanxia had actually guessed correctly, and had Luo Luo's face restored to its original state. From now on, Luo Luo's road would be increasingly difficult to travel on. A touch of concern appeared in Rong Yun's eyes. If he was to return even stronger from the demonic path, the evildoer's strength from the demonic path would be indomitable. Even if he and Nangong Luyan could always stay by Luo Luo's side, they might not necessarily be able to protect her. Rong Yun wanted to prevent this, but it was already too late. The demon race were experts at concealment. Once he entered the demonic path, it would be hard to lock onto his location. Even he could not find Yinqi's whereabouts now. Rong Yun took a final glance at that stiff corpse. Without hesitation, he turned around and left. Swallow Cloud Mountain. The battle of experts frightened the entire world. This battle, not only did it change the millennium-old landform of Swallow Cloud Mountain, in addition, Fairy Yanxia, this female devil, finally died. Yinqi was enticed to enter the demonic path. Su Luo remained unconscious. It was unpredictable whether she would live or die. No one could have imagined that when Rong Yun retaliated, his methods would be so swift and decisive, so vicious and merciless. The 108 secret training bases in this entire continent, and about tens of thousands of people who cultivated. These were all Fairy Yanxia's subordinates. In a few days' time, these secret bases, just as if they had never existed, were destroyed and would forever disappear into the long river of history. Ordinary people still lived their normal lives, completely unaware that not far from them was a secret base with piles of dead bodies. The 10 powerful clans' sense of smell was sharp. It was impossible that they did not know of this matter. When they received the news, everyone was endlessly shocked at Grandmaster Rong Yun's methods. Rong Yun appeared to be mild and gentle. Who would have thought that his methods would be like thunderous lightning weighing 150,000 kilograms, so ruthless and cruel? That was more than 10,000 people who cultivated, completely exterminated. The Jade Lake Palace's reaction was even bigger. When old grandfather Li heard this news, his hand that held the teacup paused slightly. His gaze looked at the distant sky, showed a sinister expression and ordered, "These days first, don't go find that girl to make trouble." You really couldn't tell that Rong Yun would value that girl so much. However, Outyin, Outqiong and also Yaoxiang, the 3 direct descendants, and part of the Jade Lake Palace's core, all lost their lives in this cheap girl's hand. That girl killed so many people from Jade Lake Palace. Want to let her off? That would be impossible. Old grandfather Li thought a bit, opened the treasure storehouse pavilion, and took out a small embroidered box. The embroidered box was made from a mysterious black wood, containing a millennium-old immortality that still gave off a faint fragrance. "Yao Yao, come see grandfather." Old grandfather Li's spirit transmitted this to a nearby courtyard. In that place, Li Yao Yao was single-mindedly cultivating. Chapter 1003. To save and treat Su Luo, 1. Grandmaster Rong Yin returned to Cloud Mist Peak. At this time, Su Luo was still unconscious, and she depended on Nangong Luoyan giving her a steady flow of spirit energy to preserve her life. Rong Yin quietly looked at Su Luo with his eyes fixed on that familiar face. Save her. Nangong Luoyan's voice was ice-cold. Rong Yin had both hands behind his back and stood in front of the window. His white gown was pulled by the wind, looking into the distant horizon with eyes that were like calm waves. A trace of light flashed across his eyes when he heard this sentence. After a long while, Rong Yun's gaze finally shifted back from looking out the window. A sad and pitying expression flashed across his eyes and he faintly sighed. It's not easy to save her. If it was possible to save her, how could he not have undertaken the task? He, more so than anyone else, hoped that Luo girl would be healthy, happy, safe and sound. Nangong Luoyan stood up forcefully, his lanky body giving off ample oppressive feeling. His pair of eyes carried a trace of franticness as he glared at Rong Yun with a burning gaze. Save her. Rong Yun's eyes were a deep black like the ink in an ink-washed painting, so deep that you couldn't see the bottom. He thought for a while, then finally, that pair of sharp eyes shot directly towards Nangong Luoyan. You're certain you want to save her? If my life can be exchanged for hers, I would absolutely be willing to do it. Nangong Luoyan's gaze was ice-cold and abstruse, an arrogant and noble aura penetrating throughout his body, so powerful and threatening. Rong Yun calmly looked at him, as if trying to distinguish what was genuine and what was fake in his words. The current Nangong Luoyan's long body stood like jade, tall, straight and dignified. He appeared calm but his expression was malicious, with his whole body full of an austere aura. You say it. Rong Yun's gaze was ice-cold, clear and shallow, yet a deep meaning flashed across his eyes. Want to save her, it's very difficult. Rong Yun was still as indifferent as before, misty and indistinct like the wind. Although you won't need to pay with your life, but the danger level is at 1 out of 10 chance to live. It's merely 1 out of 10 chance to live. As long as I can save Luo Luo. Even if it is 0 chance to live out of 10, I'll still go. Nangong Luoyan's sonorous voice covered over all the clamor. It rang by Rong Yun's ear. Rong Yun's gaze momentarily brightened, as if he could see through everything in the world. Since it's like this, you should sit down. Listen to me as I slowly explain. Rong Yun looked at Nangong Luoyan, his alienating attitude from before gradually softening somewhat. Luo girl's injuries are very grave. If she isn't saved, without a doubt, after 3 months, she will certainly die. Rong Yun's gaze carried a firmness that wouldn't allow any comment on this issue. When Nangong Luoyan heard this, his whole body suddenly paused and his heart was ruthlessly seized at the same time. You said that Luo Luo will die? He glared at Rong Yun with an imposing and threatening manner, with a murderous aura that rightfully would make people tremble with fear. She will die. Rong Yun did not conceal the truth at all. Your spirit energy can maintain her life for a period of time, but cannot be maintained for a lifetime. 1 year is the longest time you can maintain her life. That is to say, if they don't save her within 1 year, Luo Luo will. Thinking up to here, Nangong Luoyan's complexion turned pale. He pursed his thin lips, and his jawline was like a nobleman's, proud and ice-cold. You tell me, how is this to be done? He was wholeheartedly willing, even if he was skinned with a knife and deep-fried. Rong Yun's handsome facial features raised slightly. Have you heard of the scarlet blood Ningpo figwort? Nangong Luoyan's eyebrows wrinkled slightly. The scarlet blood Ningpo figwort that can give life to the flesh and bones of a dead person? Nangong Luoyan had read extensively since he was young. He was widely read and knowledgeable. Many things that had disappeared into the long river of history. He would inevitably have an impression. Rong Yun looked outside the window. His voice was faint, misty and indistinct like the wind. Inside the Xian's residence, there is a scarlet blood Ningpo figwort. He only said this sentence and would no longer say anything more. He believed that Nangong Luoyan would understand. However, when Nangong Luoyan heard this, he stood there in a daze, motionless. After a long while, his eyes turned slightly with a gaze that was sharp as ice knives, said, Xian's residence? As part of the present age's 10 great families, Xian's residence, these 3 words How could he not have heard of it before? Chapter 1004. To save and treat Su Luo. 2. It was rumored that Xian's wood residence was the official residence for the Xian family. Inside was a countless number of spirit treasures. However, the spirit treasures level were directly proportional to the difficulty of the mechanisms. Rumor had it that Xian's wood residence's mechanisms were exquisite. Nobody could solve them all. The Xian's wood residence had a total of 9 mechanisms. Every mechanism that you pass would have a corresponding reward. If one could break through the final mechanism, they would obtain the greatest opportunity. And the legendary scarlet blood Ningpo figwort, that could give life to the flesh and bones of a dead person, was said to be the reward after solving the final mechanism. To open Xian's wood residenceus not at all easy. Nangong Luyan stared fixedly at Rong Yun, and slowly stated. Rong Yun nodded faintly, his gaze gentle and pensive. To open Xian's wood residence indeed, it's not easy. He looked at the still unconscious Su Luo with a tone that carried a soft sigh. The difficulty of this matter lies with Luo girl. Don't know which important person had drawn up these rules. Xian's wood residence's rules were strange and abnormal. Want to pass through the barrier, only a male and female formed pair could enter. A single person simply was unable to pass through the barrier. Moreover, one must personally obtain the scarlet blood Ningpo figwort with their own hands. Only this way would it be tamed and one could truly obtain the best medicinal effect. Above all, everything pointed to Su Luo. If they wanted to save Su Luo's life, she had to personally go and challenge the mechanisms in Xian's wood residence. Don't know if it was because these rules provoked her. Su Luo's tightly closed eyes moved slightly. Those thick eyelashes that were thin as cicada's wings fanned slightly, then slowly opened. Luo Luo. Nangong Liuyun's cold and stiff face was excited momentarily. His movements were fast yet gentle as he helped Su Luo up, letting her lean against his chest. After being unconscious for so many days, Su Luo finally regained consciousness. Master. The first thing Su Luo saw was Grandmaster Rong Yun standing before her. She only realized at this time that the words coming out of her mouth were hoarse and deeply muddled. A low sound that was like a cat's meow. It was as if her throat was being squeezed by a huge invisible hand. It was extremely difficult to even say one word. Rong Yun waved his hands. You're very weak right now. Don't say any more. Come, first swallow these pills. Rong Yun took out a delicately embroidered case from his chest pocket. He opened the embroidered case and inside it was a snow-white pill. This was a Grandmaster grade vitality pill. The vitality pill was a good medicine for replenishing life force. If it was placed outside, every Grandmaster grade vitality pill would be priceless. However, who told her family's master to be a Grandmaster apothecary? This priceless treasure was eaten by Su Luo as if it was a bean candy. It's just that Su Luo's body was truly very weak. Even after she had taken the Grandmaster grade vitality pill, very quickly she fell into a coma again. Nangong Liuyun's eyes were filled with tenderness and heartache. He gently placed Su Luo back on the bed and carefully covered her with a quilt. Is there another way? He gazed gently at Su Luo, but his words were directed at Rong Yun. Rong Yun sighed, his gaze pensive as it moved swiftly. Xian's wood residence requires a male and female pair to challenge it. Otherwise, you can't even enter. During his younger days, Grandmaster Rong Yun had gone in with a colleague to challenge it. Therefore, he understood it much better than Nangong Luoyun. Luo Luo will not be able to endure it. Nangong Liuyun's fluid glance lingered on Su Luo's body, his face full of tenderness reflected by waves of sunlight. I can't possibly let Luo Luo take the risk. Rong Yun shook his head faintly. Similarly, his gaze also looked at Su Luo who had fallen into a coma again. If you don't go, she'll die 10 out of 10 times. If you go, she still has a chance to live. You have the heart to watch such a frail Luo Luo go and risk her life. If you do this, how can you face her mother? Nangong Liuyun's eyes exposed a radiance that was malicious and sharp. Nangong Liuyun always did things quickly, ruthlessly, and accurately. With just half a sentence, he had tightly seized Rong Yun's heart. Chapter 1005. To Save and Treat Su Luo 3. Looking at the face on the bed that bore a striking resemblance to that person, an agonized expression appeared in Rong Yun's eyes, which had always been tranquil and calm. He sucked in a deep breath and his expression restored to the calm one from before. Apart from this, there is no other way. After he finished speaking, his figure had already disappeared. Nangong Luoyun stared blankly, stumped for words, and his gaze fell on Su Luo, who was fast asleep on the bed. Su Luo's sleep seemed very restless, with her long shapely eyebrows knitted slightly. Her expression carried a faint trace of suffering. In such a short period of time, her body had thinned down by an entire circle. Just looking at her made him feel extremely pained. Nangong Luoyun sat by her side and held her hand tightly with a pained and determined appearance. Luo, you'll definitely be fine. She'll definitely be fine. Ultimately, Nangong Luoyun still agreed to Rong Yun's suggestion. To go to Xian's wood residence, there's no other option for him to choose from. However, to open the Xian's wood residence wasn't something Rong Yun alone had the final say on. Want to open Xian's wood residence? The 4 keys must be turned at the same time. And these 4 keys were in the hands of several major powers from the present age. Purgatory City had 1. Jade Lakesley family had 1. Beichen's aristocratic family had 1. There was still the one with Luoyu Palace Hall's Luo family. Only after gathering together these 4 keys would he be able to open the front gate to Xian's wood residence. Only like this would he get a chance to challenge the 9 different palace halls in Xian's wood residence. That very night, Rong Yun left Cloud Mist Peak. 3 days later he returned. The face that was always distinctly cold like jade carried a trace of exhaustion. However, his expression also seemed as if a heavy weight was lifted off his mind. This matter should not be delayed. After 7 days, you'll set out on this journey. Rong Yun stood with his hands behind his back, distinctly cold like the wind. 7 days. Nangong Luoyun frowned. 7 days was too soon. Right now Su Luo was still dizzy. Only after taking a vitality pill did she become somewhat clear-headed. Rong Yun waved his hand. Carry her and follow me. Finished speaking, Rong Yun took the lead and began to step away. Without looking back, he headed toward his refining room. These last couple of days, aside from dealing with the matter of the 4 keys, he had also gone to gather several kinds of herbs that he had been fixated on for a long time. At this time, Su Luo had already regained consciousness. She opened her misty and fascinated eyes to seize up her surroundings. Master's refining room, regardless of whether it was the layout or the lighting, was extremely similar to Fairy Yen Xia's. No, it should be said that Fairy Yen Xia's refining room was built as a complete carbon copy of Master's refining room. A medicinal cauldron that was as tall as a person, with fire below that was like snakes dancing and swallowing, and the roasting hot flames spreading continuously. Along the foot of the wall, there were rows of various large and small-sized medicine containers. Because they were tightly sealed with oak corks, Su Luo could not distinguish which drug ingredients were inside them. Rong Yun lifted up the 3rd medicine bucket and poured all the juice inside the bucket into the medicinal cauldron. When the medicinal juice met the boiling hot medicinal cauldron, a rich, sweet scent immediately started to fill the air. Carry her to sit inside, Rong Yun said to Nangong Luoyun. Nangong Luoyun knew that Rong Yun was treating Su Luo, and without raising any objections, he did it according to Rong Yun's instructions. Want to cook me again? Although Su Luo's body was weak, but her mind was very sober. Last time, she had nearly collapsed from being cooked in the old witch Fairy Yen Xia's medicinal cauldron. That still left her with lingering fear. Nangong Luoyun indulgently and lovingly pinched her now peeled thin little face with a tender smile and said, Master knows what he is doing. Don't be anxious. Such a soft chatting tone. Counting through the people in the whole world, Nangong Luoyun would only use this tone on Su Luo alone. Rong Yun's light as a feather gaze landed on Nangong Luoyun's body. He stood with his hands behind his back and his robe dancing lightly, appearing distinctly cold and distant, pushing people away to a distance of 500 kilometers. But at this moment, the gaze he used to look at Nangong Luoyun carried a touch of appreciation. No matter how good a person's innate skills were or how high they had cultivated to, they still might not be able to obtain Rong Yun's appreciation. What Rong Yun appreciated was Nangong Liuyun's affection for Su Luo. Chapter 1006. To save and treat Su Luo for medicine refining room. Inside, one after another brilliant night pearls were dazzling and bright. Now the rich sweet fragrance of medicine assailed the nostrils. After Su Luo entered the medicinal cauldron, Rong Yun had put in another 3 kinds of medicinal herbs. These 3 stalks of medicinal herbs, in the secular world, every stalk was priceless. It had a price but no market, but in front of Rong Yun, it was merely a stalk of medicinal herb. A clean and complicated vein pattern was curved on top of the medicinal cauldron. It seemed archaic and mysterious at the same time. But precisely because of these ancient line patterns, it allowed Su Luo to stay smoothly inside the medicinal cauldron without worrying about being cooked thoroughly. Certainly, Fairy Yan Xia's ability to inscribe matrix spells naturally couldn't be compared to Rong Yun. Thus her medicinal cauldron didn't have this ability. Stay in the medicinal cauldron for 7 days. After 7 days, your body will have improved a bit. Grandmaster Rong Yun looked at Su Luo's face for a split second, his eyes blurring slightly. Su Luo leaned weakly against the wall of the medicinal cauldron, a shallow smile appearing on her face. Troubled master, for all the effort, cough cough. Don't need to say more, circulate your spirit force to heal. It's best that you absorb all of these medicine. Rong Yun frowned. If only I had 7-step smiling flower, then it would be perfect. Unfortunately, he knew that Yan Xia had it. However, he had walked through her 108 secret training bases, searched everywhere, and couldn't find that 7-step smiling flower. It really was regretful. Just when Rong Yun was about to leave, Su Luo called out to stop him. Master, that. Is it this? Su Luo's body was very weak. Just using her space once had consumed a lot of her strength. She opened her hand and a clear green-colored flower appeared in her palm. Su Luo's hand was extremely thin and shriveled. It looked as if there was merely one layer, only skin and bones. A person's heart would give birth to pity and tenderness just seeing her emaciated body. Rong Yun's gaze turned away from her wrist to the palm of her hand. At this moment, his eyes lit up immediately. He hastily walked 2 steps to arrive in front of Su Luo. Took that strange-colored flower and couldn't help but to look towards Su Luo. This flower. Even he couldn't find this flower. How did Luo girl get it? Su Luo coughed twice, with a splendid smile that was very pleased with herself. The old witch Yan Xia chased after me to kill me, because I stole her medicine chest. Cough cough cough. Su Luo recalled at that time when old witch Yan Xia took a nap, and how she was pretending to be a maid. Then, the matter of her stealing the medicinal chest. The more she thought about it, the funnier it seemed. Grandmaster Rong Yun smiled in a spoiling manner. He rubbed her head. It's best that things ended up like this. You keep this 7-step smiling flower. Every 2 hours, you should eat one of the flower petals. 7-step smiling flower could purify the impurities in the medication. Currently, Su Luo was very weak. If the impurities in the medication was purified, it would be even easier for her to absorb. Otherwise, it would be like her swallow the drugs whole. Even if they were the best drug ingredients, she would still have wasted more than half of it. But now it was great. With this stalk of 7-step smiling flower, then this problem was resolved. Rong Yun bitterly smiled and shook his head. Even injured to this degree, Luo girl's luck was still without a match. Just casually taking out a flower, and it was a high-grade spirit grass. When Rong Yun was leaving, his gaze shot towards Nangong Liuyun. Nangong Liuyun turned a blind eye to him. He walked to a place about 3 meters away from the medicinal cauldron, sat down cross-legged and started to cultivate. Rong Yun nodded his head, turned around and left. With Nangong Liuyun at her side taking care of her, he felt much more reassured. Rong Yun left the refining room, and his figure disappeared in place. No one knew where he, as the only grandmaster-level apothecary of the present age, went to. Speaking of Su Luo here, the last time Su Luo was shut in a medicinal cauldron to be cooked, those circumstances were really too hair-raising. However, this time, there wasn't even a bit of danger. Right now, Su Luo was comfortably leaning against the wall of the medicinal cauldron, so leisurely and carefree, as if soaking in a hot spring. Chapter 1007. Traveling to Xian's wood residence, 1 Su Luo, this time, soaked for 7 days. The 7th day arrived and Nangong Luyan opened his pair of eyes punctually. Outside came the light sounds of footsteps. Rong pushed open the door and entered. Seeing that the situation hadn't fallen out of his control, he then nodded slightly. Su Luo sat cross-legged in the medicinal cauldron. She had entered a meditative state. She had maintained this posture for a full 7 days. Surrounding her body, there was an endless spirit force moving around then moving through, allowing the spirit force to permeate throughout the area. Even though Su Luo's body was seriously injured, but her soul had been cultivating non-stop. Also, because her body was seriously injured and her soul had split off to cultivate, it resulted in her rapidly progressing in the spirit dance steps. But no matter how fast she improved, it was still useless. With the current health of her body, she simply could not endure the impact of using the spirit dance steps. Rong opened the lid of the medicinal cauldron. Su Luo slowly stopped her cultivation and lifted her eyes to look. Rong normally clear and cold expression now contained a light smile. His pitch black as ink eyes looked at Su Luo with deep concern. "Extend your hand over here." Su Luo extended her hand to let Master take her pulse. When Rong was taking her pulse, Nangong Liuyun's gaze stared unblinkingly at Rong face, afraid of missing any thread of information on his face. Rong expression was still the same as before. After quite a while, he nodded slightly, passably good. Able to make Grandmaster Rong say these 2 words was not easy. Nangong Liuyun's tense heart loosened slightly, his hand reaching out to hold Su Luo. Su Luo shook her head. "It's nothing. I can do it by myself." After all, she was also a stately 6th rank. How could she not be able to even walk? Su Luo supported herself against the copper wall and slowly stood up. Nangong Luyan nervously watched her, with an expression as if he was facing a great enemy. No, even when facing a great enemy, Our Highness Prince Jean still wouldn't be this nervous. Su Luo slowly stood up. Just when she was about to stand up straight suddenly, she felt her legs soften, an invisible pressure coming from her legs. Su Luo suddenly felt powerless from being unable to control her legs. The foot she stood on with great difficulty directly started to slide. The moment when Su Luo was about to sit in the medicinal soup again, Nangong Luyan, who was watching on the side, fished with his long arm and folded around Su Luo's lovely and slender waist. In an instant, the dripping wet Su Luo had already fallen into his embrace. "Go wash, don't catch a cold. Now your body is very weak." Rong looked at Nangong Luyan hugging Su Luo and frowned slightly. Seeing Nangong Luyan familiarly carry Su Luo while walking away, Rong suddenly had a gloomy feeling of being a father, and having his own daughter being snatched away by another person. After washing, Su Luo changed into clean clothes, and was placed on the bed by Nangong Luyan like a precious treasure. "I'm not that weak." Because of moving her body, Su Luo grasped slightly for breath. After bathing in medicine for 7 days, her body was indeed somewhat better than before. At least, she was able to converse normally and not lose consciousness as often. Nangong Liuyun's pitch-black eyes stared at Su Luo, just like that, gazing deeply at her. "What?" Su Luo innocently blinked her eyes. At this moment, she was leaning on a pillow, while Nangong Luyan stood by her bedside. She lifted her eyes slightly and asked suspiciously. Nangong Luyan suddenly took a few steps forward, and his long body squatted down, staying just like that by her side. His head was buried deeply, not allowing people to clearly see the expression on his face. Su Luo quietly looked at him and didn't speak. After a long time, Nangong Luyan sucked in a deep breath. His voice was muffled and had a trace of hoarseness. "Luo Luo. I'm sorry." His face that was hanging down wouldn't allow people to see the pain and suffering on his face. Because of the matter before, now he solemnly apologized to her. Chapter 1008. Traveling to Xian's wood residence, 2. When she was awake, he finally said this sentence. These days those words that he wanted to say made it difficult for him to stay calm. His Luo could finally hear the apology from his heart. Su Luo looked at Nangong Luoyan in a daze. The scene from that day appeared in her head. Nangong Luoyan had turned around and left. Back then, his back appeared determined, without a trace of turning back around. In the torrents of rain, her thin and weak figure wept in despair. Su Luo muttered a little to herself. Her slender jade hand gently stroked his hair, and she softly said, "That day, I also had places where I was wrong. Can't blame it all on you." "No, I was wrong." Nangong Luoyan lifted his eyes. He who always appeared distant and indifferent now displayed tender feelings that were quite touching. Su Luo smiled bitterly and shook her head. "Nangong, I was wrong at that time. If I didn't hesitate and hold back, then you wouldn't have misunderstood." Luo Nangong Luoyan's tone was gentle and low. His clearly jointed hand tightly gripped Su Luo's hand. Two lonely hearts intertwined closely, from two, becoming one. "I really regret it." Nangong Luoyan sat on the bedside, tightly hugging Su Luo to his chest. His chin was placed on her head and slowly narrated. "If that day, I could be a little more patient, restrain my temper a little more, you wouldn't." Just recalling Su Luo having been wounded to such a degree by the old witch Wuxia, the blue veins on Nangong Luoyan's face that was fine as beautiful porcelain burst out, appearing ruthless and malevolent. "Master has already killed that old witch Wuxia." Su Luo smiled faintly, her smile bright and cheerful. "I didn't personally kill her," Nangong Luoyan said very regretfully. Su Luo looked at the elegantly dressed Nangong Luoyan who brought out the most noble and refined appearance, and she smiled. "No harm in any case, she is already dead." However, Ouyang Yunqi still hasn't died. Nangong Luoyan's fists clenched tightly. Right now, his gaze was abstruse and ice-cold, giving off a bone-chilling cold aura. His face had an insufferable, arrogant and strong aggressiveness. Su Luo's heart tightened slightly. It could clearly be seen in front of her that arrogant and noble Nangong Luoyan, a king among man, was really concerned about Yunqi. Even though he didn't ask about it, that didn't mean he didn't want to know. That day, he was angered to such a degree, it could clearly be seen how much he cared. Only now, she was heavily wounded and couldn't get up, so he had to painstakingly suppress it, right? Master had mentioned before that Yunqi had entered the demonic path. Now even Master couldn't find his whereabouts. But one day, Yunqi will definitely return as a king among experts, when that time comes. Su Luo took a deep breath and drew Nangong Luoyan's hand to her. Her gaze calmly looked at him. "Do you believe me?" Nangong Luoyan nodded his head without the slightest hesitation. "I believe you. No matter what Luo said, he would believe everything. No matter what Luo wanted, as long as he had it, it was hers." This was the oath Nangong Luoyan had made to himself the last time, when he saw Su Luo on the verge of death. Su Luo looked at the Nangong Luoyan before her eyes. Currently, it was exactly when the sun was setting in the west. Among the faint afterglow of the setting sun, his beautiful jet-black hair fell down in torrents like poured ink. It landed on his sculpted shoulders, making his entire person seem demonically charming, soft and dazzling. Such male perfection, now there was a possibility she could lose him. Su Luo pursed her thin, dark red lips, and finally made a firm decision. "Then it's time I tell you about the matter from before. Rather than let Yunqi insert another foot in the future, it would be better to come out and reveal everything. At that time, if Nangong Luoyan could not accept it, then it was better to get the pain over with than prolong the agony." Seeing Su Luo's very serious face, Nangong Luoyan unexpectedly felt hesitant. If it is difficult to say, you're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.